Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May 20th, 2022 board meeting, the last board meeting of this school year. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us this evening. I want to start in a good way by acknowledging the traditional territories. The Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. And I also want to start this meeting with a very huge congratulations to Deb Whitten, new superintendent to the school district. Deb, from me and on behalf of the board, congratulations on this new position. I know that you are going to do this work and conduct the work of public education in the school district with integrity, as you have been doing for the last year. And I know that we are all very excited to see the progress that we're going to make under your leadership. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chair Painter.
With that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Trustee Duncan. There is an amendment, and I'm hoping that trustees can agree so we don't have to go back and forth, but I'd like to add Jesse Brown to community presentations. We'll add Jesse under C. So A7 is the agenda portion, and we'll add him under C after Eden Murray. Any other amendments to the agenda this evening? Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
Thank you. On June 8th, you sent us an email about an email that you had received, and you requested that this be placed on correspondence from MLA Kirkpatrick, and I wondered why that wasn't on there.
Likely missed, but we'll make sure that it gets placed. Yeah, that got missed. So I'm happy to, when we get to correspondence, read the letter out.
So can it be added as B12 then?
Yeah, let's add it. I mean, I believe, did trustees receive that letter? I thought I forwarded it. Okay, so we have it. That's good. I wanted to make sure we at least got it. Yes, let's please add it under B12 so it can be reflected in the minutes. Any other amendments, please? Trustee Duncan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We also, as a board, received a number of letters in support of the Kai Learning Farm. Unfortunately, they were just received today, and I'm wondering whether or not it would be prudent, given that the item is to be discussed on our agenda, that we add those letters of correspondence as a series of letters starting at B13.
Yeah, why don't we note them for the minutes to be added to B13? I don't think that's an issue. Trustees, any further amendments to the agenda? So we have the addition of Jesse Brown to our community presentations, the letter from Emily Kirkpatrick under B12, and the series of letters regarding the matter to discuss this evening under B13. Okay, seeing nothing further, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the agenda this evening, please signify. And that is trustee, those opposed? Trustee Waters, I didn't get your vote, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm voting in favor.
Okay, thank you. So that is unanimous. Approval of minutes from May 30th. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Moved by Jordan, seconded by Elaine. Any discussion on the minutes from May 30th? Trustee Duncan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks. So just an amendment at A3 of the minute, which is on page 8 of the pack-up. And so I'm seeking to add just a note that Trustee Whitaker sought clarification about whether Mr. Farber's 7:55 p.m. question was asked and answered under the question period portion of the April 2022 board minutes.
Mhm.
and that the chair agreed to follow up with Mr. Farber.
Okay, thank you. Any further amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the minutes from May 30th. Oh, sorry, Trustee
Pardon
Duncan.
me,
My
Chair.
apologies.
Sorry. No, my apologies. I neglected to just point out the way that the minutes drafted at A3. The amendment I made last month under A3 to the minute was approved by consent. And then the amended minutes were approved via the motion moved by Trustee Waters and Trustee Leonard. I don't know if we want to be noting in the minute where amendments are just approved by consent or not, but I just thought I would raise it as more of a question.
Good point, Trustee Duncan. I'm not aware if we have been doing that, if it's been consented. Secretary Treasurer or Superintendent, can you help us out? Have we been noting in our minutes where there's just been consent around adjustments or shifts in amendments that have come forward? And perhaps I've missed something, which is possible. Maybe not. That's okay.
Sorry, can you rephrase the question, please?
Yeah, Trustee Duncan, do you want to go ahead? Maybe I've missed your question. I think I heard it right. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you did. I was just wondering whether or not we wanted to. So, for instance, at A3, approval of the minutes, and this is again at page 8 of the pack-up. I moved an amendment to the April 2022 board meeting minutes, and that amendment was approved by consent. And then a motion was moved to approve the amended minutes. And I'm just wondering if we should be in our minutes noting where an amendment or anything is approved by consent.
Yeah, it's just a general question, Secretary Treasurer Morris, around when there are items that come forward under consent, if we're noting them. And it's a good question. I've actually not seen that we have, or maybe we have and I've missed it.
Yeah, I would have to look at that. I'm not sure how to answer that tonight. Sorry.
Okay, well then let's, Trustee Duncan, can we leave that with staff and they can come back?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the minutes? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. No business. Oh, sorry. Business arising from the minutes. Is there any business arising from May 30th? Seeing none, we will go to community presentations. We'll start with Sarah Rude, SD61, storm drain construction at Vic High Learning Farm. Is Miss Rude here?
Hi.
Oh, hi, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm not Sarah Rude, but I was given consent from her and then Vicky to read a letter first.
Oh, yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, you didn't. It's been a long day. Yes, Sarah is unable to attend and you are reading her statement in place. Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Eden, what I'll do is I'll just note, I'll set my timer for 5 minutes. Okay. You're reading the statement out, but I'll let you know when we're at a 1 minute period, just so that you can have an idea of where we're at in the speaking order. Okay.
Okay, and then I will be speaking later, I believe, but we can handle that after.
Yeah. So you're speaking for Sarah. You're reading her letter, and then you're speaking afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
So you may go ahead and start now.
Thank you. Yeah, so just to note that Sarah would have loved to be here. She's always involved in the conversations around the garden, but she's experiencing a lot of burnout from all the work that she's doing. And so she's asked me to support. So this is her letter. My name is Sarah Rude, and I am a Mi'kmaq woman of mixed Irish, English, and French ancestry. I have lived in Lekwungen territory for 22 years. I've worked for IED for 13 years. For the last 6 years, I've worked as the Indigenous Art and Culture Facilitator teacher for the district. In the last year, I took an education leave as I decided to return to school to think how I could continue to do my job as a cultural facilitator. I am now thinking through how we bring in Indigenous culture in a way that is safe and doesn't result in further colonization of our ways of being and knowing. I am thinking through how we bring land-based pedagogy to students whose birthright it is to access education that represents their cultural ways of knowing and being and connects them to the land. Our cultures as Indigenous peoples are always connected to the land, and so when we bring cultural knowledge into our classrooms, we are in turn connecting students to their homelands. The right to access education from our worldviews and land-based teachings is affirmed in Articles 12 to 15 of the United Nations Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. This declaration has been adopted by the BC government and thus the Ministry of Education. Yet attempting to bring cultural ways of being into the Western education system is often unsafe, hurtful, and not possible. The Vikai Indigenous Plant Garden and Garry Oak Camas Meadow were brought to life after the grade 12 Indigenous Art and Culture class that I was teaching took to heart and then acted upon the words of Wasanic elder John Eliot, who admonished, "The way to be a good visitor is to learn the language of the land and develop a relationship with the land, plants, and animals." As a way of moving beyond land acknowledgements and into truly acting upon what we learn, the students designed the garden and meadow. They drew plans and picked plant relatives. A local business ally, Saanich Native Plants, teamed with us, and through beautiful community connection and the hard work of students and staff, we brought the garden and meadow to life. In fact, it has been Mason Street Farm, Saanich Native Plants, and myself, in collaboration with the plethora of students and volunteers who have developed a relationship with the garden, that have stewarded this land and these plants and animals, not the administration or the current iteration of the Indigenous Education Department. This outdoor classroom has held ceremonies, songs, dances, drumming, harvesting, connection, and learning. We have held numerous protees on this site. Through over $80,000 worth of grant money from the Horner Foundation and Farm to School, we were able to then, after lead the example of the Vikai Garden, fund the creation of over 6 Indigenous plant gardens. We worked with Dr. Elmer George, the last fluent Lekwungen speaker, Chief Edward Thomas, Diane Sam, and the Lekwungen language group to create beautiful Camas Meadow and education resources and signage. Each of the gardens was given a Lekwungen name by Dr. Elmer George and Chief Edward Thomas, including Vikai, whose Lekwungen name, I can only pronounce the start, is Matelia, and my learning is to learn that because I was just given the pronunciation. The gardens were culturally blessed with support and through ceremonies with local elders. There is a multitude of work, engagement, love, and care that has gone into this outdoor classroom. Right from the beginning of the gardens, Cheryl Bryce and Butch Dick from Songhees Nations were consulted in order to make sure we did all this work in a good way. We agreed with the guidance of Cheryl Bryce that when the Camas in the meadow were big and strong enough, we could divide the bulbs and propagate them in various locations through Victoria, where the Camas fields have been affected by urbanization. All this is to say that in fact, this very alive, thriving classroom is deserving of the respect and care that which brought it into being. All of the work and love that has gone into the entire garden project deserves this respect. The ones who have been working alongside, caring for, and being cared for by these plants and animals and land where they live are deserving of consultation and respect. Again, I wonder, how do we bring in Indigenous ways of knowing, being, culture, and land-based pedagogy into the Western education system in a safe way? And I hope that this brief synopsis gives you some context to the deep value and love that exist at the Vic High School Garden. Haishka Siem, Mset Nukmak, all my relations. So that is Sarah Ruth's official letter.
That was exactly 5 minutes. And my apologies for not giving you a 1-minute warning, but I got kind of taken listening to everything and your background and the crows and all that was quite a scene you've set. So thank you. I'll now turn to you, Eden, for your presentation. And I will try to do a much better job of giving you a 1-minute warning this time. So you have 5 minutes over. Do you have a presentation or are you just speaking?
Yeah, before we start, can I just ask if I can screen share? Does that work? I did ask over email and or Aaron did for me, and I was told that I should just ask in the meeting. It should be okay. I just have some photos of
Sure.
students in the garden and 2 videos.
Please go ahead. It should be set up.
Yeah, you can go, Eden. You should be ready to screen share with us, and then when you're ready, I'll set the timer.
Okay, I'll start with this one. Might take me 20 more seconds to get it out.
It's okay. I won't start until you
Okay.
start talking. I'll give you. We'll practice some grace and understanding here. That's all. That's all good.
Okay. So share. So I think you can see my screen.
Yep.
Messy tabs. Okay, I think we're good to go.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Eden. Eden Murray. I am a settler here on the Lekwungen Territory. I grew up in Victoria. I graduated from Victoria High School in 2018. And my ancestry is of Irish, English, Norwegian, and Scottish descent. And so I take my role as a settler quite seriously. And I also love the land. And a lot of that love here has sprouted from the Vic High Garden. I was incredibly involved throughout the whole process, the expansion into the farm with Mason Street, as well as the medicine wheel garden. I was a key steward in. And I've very much so grown with this garden. And so I feel that I have a voice and a role to play in decision making and speaking for other students. So I'm just going to go through a few photos so you can see some of the people that have been involved. Photos here are of students that were very deeply moved by the garden club that I hosted multiple times a week and taught kids to grow food in. This is just some of the kale that is growing by Mason Street. More students loving the herbs and the food. So what's beautiful about Vic High is that you have the at Mason Street and myself, because I'm a staff for Mason Street now, teaching students how to farm, as well as having the medicine wheel garden where we learn about land relationship in a deep way and in connection with Indigenous people, as well as herbs. So you can see one of the herbs here I have with me. So this is coastal sage, coastal mugwort, and this plant initiated me when it was planted in the medicine wheel garden into my work now as an herbalist. So I work full-time for myself as an herbalist, a doula, and as a doula, I work with food, and all of that stemmed from the Vic High Garden. But as you can see, this is a tiny plant. So this is what it looked like in the medicine wheel garden when we planted it. But then now it's like probably at least 20 times my size. It's huge. And that has taken I think it was 10 years to grow and to establish. It takes a long time for these plants to establish. More people, students that were deeply moved by the garden, working in the garden, community, from farm to school, and local college involved. Erin Topley and Jesse there working. Seeds from the medicine wheel garden. More students. Children, of course. Herbal remedies that can be made from the plants in the garden. And so here, this is a recent photo. It's not as good quality because it was on my phone. This was just a few weeks ago, me teaching with Mason Street. And the kids are learning how to grow their own food. They're learning how to, I get so excited. They're learning how to make compost. They're learning how to grow a nutritionally dense food that you could sell. And in food systems collapsing in the next however many years, I see this as the most beautiful and important knowledge that we could be teaching kids. So this is a little bit of a snapshot on how me as a student has found a career working through the garden. And the students that you've seen pictures of also, I have watched their journeys, also have beautiful careers working with food. So now I teach medicine camps working with kids. So I learned how to teach and I learned how to work with plants through here. And now I bring it into my life. I'm also starting a business and nonprofit making herbal medicine with my best friend. She's a Musqueam Indigenous woman. And here it was a few years ago, me teaching her how to wrap this plant again, the coastal sage, to burn it. More of the students. So if we have the time, I have a few small videos. This is an interview I did.
Just about 40 seconds, Eden.
Okay, this is going to take 1 minute, so hopefully that works.
We'll give you that for the one, and then we'll get you to wrap.
Okay. This is a student at Buckeye.
I see flowers and like a bee farm and just people really close and making a difference, like little by little, in people's lives. Because to me, like, my happiness comes from the garden. Just sticking my feet into the dirt, like after a long day, like it does everything for me. People laugh at me, but it's just, you're connected to where you came from. And if I were to work in some sort of food protection, it would be just, I'd want to be outside or near the sun or with things that grow.
So that was a student. And then here, I'm sure all of you know Ella Nelson. This was an interview I did with her for a project.
So sorry, Eden. We are over time now by about 30 seconds. So I'm just going to get you to wrap up if you could, please.
Okay, so yeah, this was a video of her talking about natural foodways and how deeply important and appropriate it is to Indigenous people. And
go ahead, you can play.
Okay.
And my uncle sold Cape Lazo last year, the last wooden boat. To realize your whole lifestyle, your whole, what you were familiar with, what was important to you is gone. Because it was a commercial fishery too, but we learned so much about our lands, our waters, our tides, our oceans, our weather. All of that is amazing biological knowledge that I listened to my dad talk about.
Yeah, so thank you so much for listening. I will note that a really important aspect of moving the medicine wheel garden would be that it has to be done in the fall because the plants will not survive, or they're very low chance of surviving being transplanted in the summer. And so that has been 10 years of work and countless blessings that will die with that project.
Okay.
So
thanks Eden. Really appreciate your presentation and the videos and the photos and bringing what you brought tonight and sharing Sarah's message with us as well. Thank you for your time. If you could unshare your screen, that would be great.
I can figure that out.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time and for coming to us tonight. Thank you. Okay, we'll go now to our last presenter, Jesse Brown. Jesse, do you have a presentation or are you just speaking tonight?
Just speaking.
All right. I will admit and acknowledge I've been bad on my 1 minute timing. I've been listening, so my apologies. You have 5 minutes. I will do my best to let you know when you're 1 minute up, but I'm also giving some grace to folks if I'm dropping the ball. So Jesse, you can go ahead and start now.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I really get that we're in a bind here. Yeah, I trust that we can find a solution that gets us by. I prepared a letter just so I may speak concisely here and not to speak to the silver lining in all of this for me is that it feels like an opportunity to bring the awareness of what is really going on here with the Vic High Garden to this board. Clearly, after the retirement of Greg Kitchen, we are in need of champions at this district who have a real sense of the value of students' education, Not only that, but also their physical and mental health, as well as an awareness of the appreciation we revel in of the broader Victoria community who enjoy the beauty of this garden and the over 4 tons of healthy produce that we offer annually. It was amazing working with Greg, I will say. He really valued and understood what we're doing here. I remember one of my last meetings on site with him in the spring of 2020 as COVID was settling in. He shared his elation with the success of this project. He asked me if we can recreate this model in other schools in the district and what would that actually take. I told him all we need are more farmers, and we're cultivating some right here. I would love to find another champion or two out of you who share Greg's curiosity, support, and understanding of the value of this project to students, to the community at large, and to other school districts in BC. There are a lot of school gardens in the district, as you know, and as you likely also know, they inevitably tend to require some kind of financial or labor support from time to time from the district. Yet to this day, over 7 years, we have not asked for that type of support once. In this time, we have served some 600 to 700 Vic High students while providing significant benefit to Victoria's food security. And because of this, this model is currently being implemented by a colleague of ours named Ben Zykin in SD61 in Nanaimo. And over the past 7 years, Farm to School BC, a nonprofit connected to the BC government, has been using this model that we created specifically at this site to design and start implementing sustainable educational farms at no cost to school districts all over BC. Countless regional BC and school district officials have actually toured this site with Farm to School BC. I would love to speak to the proposed solutions outlined in the agenda. It turns out the one that I would be most pleased with didn't make the cut for this list, unfortunately. This is the potential redirection of the pipe that would completely avoid the Indigenous garden, the Camas meadow, and would run a straight line down the path of the annual production space to the manhole, which would drastically reduce the impact on the completion of our season. I know if Marnie is here, I suspect she can speak to this option. Naturally, there's an added cost to this one. You know, it's your decision. This seems like a feasible option to me, but I'm not sure why it didn't make the cut. But I can speak to the other options. Option 1 in the agenda, the temporary movement of the farm. This is, as I've mentioned in previous notifications, impossible. I'm happy to answer questions as to why, rather than bore you with the ecology of the situation. Option 2, commence with construction immediately and compensate the farm. I'm really, really appreciative of Kim's recognition that we are in a very tough financial situation if the construction proceeds in July. The unreasonable notice that we received in March leaves the district responsible for losses with respect to our MOU. I'm thankful this option is on the table. While it leaves out the emotional and ecological impacts of our relationship to this land, the compensation, if negotiated in good faith and to a reasonable value, would allow the project to remain solvent and we could rebuild. I have sent an updated compensation package to trustees. This number given reflects the true cost of the loss of revenue we will incur. Details are in that package.
Jesse, I'm just I've missed again, but I'm going to give you another 40-50 seconds, so please continue.
I'm almost there. Financial compensation for partial refunds. We will be required to give weekly box participants. The cost of food we will need to purchase to fulfill the needs of our box program until its early completion date, as well as compensation for our staff who have committed to full-time work through the fall, who would be required to take significant cuts in hours unexpectedly. There is also a contingent in there to support the prep required for our part for construction, as well as funds to a portion of the repair required to put the garden back together. Option 3, delay at a potential cost of hundreds of thousands. I get it. This seems really costly, but it's our second choice with a redirection of the pipe The delay would allow us to complete 2/3 of our season and would give the plants from the Indigenous garden a solid chance being moved to a new site. Lastly, I wish to create a new MOU that protects both the farmers and the school district within this pioneering relationship. We have shown for the past 7 years that we are committed and reliable partners of this district. We have created something novel that is beginning to be replicated all over BC. We would love to continue on this mission and very much look forward to repairing and rebuilding and cultivating food and food growers for years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much for your presentation, Jesse. Thank you as well for the updated cost estimates that you sent. I would ask if you could kindly send the letter through to trustees as well, only because it's powerful, and during the first part there were a few cutouts where the audio was a little choppy, and I don't want anyone to miss your message.
You bet.
Parts.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, trustees, that is those are our community presentations. We'll move, and we thank everyone and honor the time that everyone has spent to come and present to us tonight. Not always an easy thing to do, but important, and we thank you with appreciation for doing that. We'll go to correspondence. We have 13 pieces of correspondence with the 2 new added ones. Those are for information. Trustee Whitaker.
I would like to pull B1, B10, and B12.
B1, B10, and B12.
Thank you.
Anything else from trustees? Okay. B1, sorry, Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Sorry, B6 as well, please.
Okay, so
Oh, yes. Good one.
B1, B6, and I'm sorry, I should have written it down. Trustee Whitaker will remind me. So
Yeah, right.
B12 and B6, got it. Okay, so we'll go to B1 first. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Thank you. So this is a letter from one of our partner groups, the George J. Pack, in regards to community link funding. And I just want to ensure that a response is given to them since they've taken the time to answer. I just didn't want it to sit on correspondence, but maybe we could respond with something, please.
Staff has this is correspondence to the board. I'm happy to write something, but I just want to see if staff have anything to report on this one, either to the superintendent or secretary treasurer if they'd like.
Through the chair, from the staff's perspective, we have been in communication with Ms. Carmichael. However, we'd be happy to provide further information to you, should you wish, based on the points laid out here in the letter.
Trustee Whitaker, how would you like to proceed?
Yeah, if I can just follow up. So I understand if you've been having conversations with Angela Carmichael, but have you sent a letter to the PAC? Right, Angela, just because the letter is from the PAC itself, that's why I was looking for a response, one to go to the Parent Advisory Council, just for their correspondence as well, rather than it just going through Angela. Not that I have a problem with that, but I also think we should follow that official communication path. So it's with all parents, not. Anyway, that's my thought on that. If that's not the wish, I just thought that would be a good practice.
Superintendent, unless you have a follow-up, I'm happy to leave that with you and we can follow up at a later date. Okay, B6, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thanks. I really wanted to pull this. This is the letter we received from the president of the Greater Victoria Crossing Guards Association, making us aware that they will not be able to continue service in this new school year. They do have funding until the end of this school year. So I think really what I wanted to flag more than a response, frankly, at this time, because I know there's some complexities here, but I think I'm wondering what the plan is through the chair to the superintendent to move this issue forward and to get the stakeholders, both municipal and school district stakeholders, to the table to discuss how we're going to keep kids safe at crosswalks in the new school year.
Okay, Superintendent.
Thank you through the chair. We are in the process of gathering information, as you've mentioned, Trustee Duncan. And also, as you've mentioned, it is complex and it certainly is different throughout the 28 schools. We'll continue to collect the information and look for solutions or mutually agreed upon solution. We recognize that September is coming quickly, even though we do have a break coming up, but our intention is to have a solution that all can agree to before that time. Having said that, if it isn't in place for that September start, then we will look to try and add some hours to EAs for the September month so that we do have safe transportation to and from schools. And I don't know if Secretary Treasurer Morris has anything else to add.
Okay. Any follow-up on that, Trustee Duncan, or can we go to B?
No, I appreciate that. Thank you to the superintendent for providing some reassurance that it's in hand and that we've got a plan for September. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to B10, Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, okay, so this one is the South Jubilee Neighborhood Association. Again, I am thinking they need a response. They are expecting to be included in consultation and haven't heard anything. So obviously they need a follow-up. And I just also wanted to jump back to B1. That was actually addressed to the board. That's why my thought was that the board chair needs to reply to the Parent Advisory Council. I do understand that the superintendent has been speaking with Angela, but it's about those pieces. But again, back to the South Jubilee. There's
Sorry, I don't want to lose the thread on that. So I'm happy to, but the board needs to move a motion for me to write a letter. So I'm happy to, but we need a motion to do that. I just don't want to lose the thread on B1. Go ahead.
Okay, so I would put forward a motion for the board chair to reply to the George J. PAC to outline community link funding at George J.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Trustee Duncan, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Carry on, Trustee Whitaker.
Okay, so just to the South Jubilee, they specifically are looking for the community engagement process on the future of the Bank Street School. Their last line is, "We look forward to your response and to meeting with you soon." Can we please instruct the board chair to write a response to the South Jubilee Neighborhood Association?
Trustee Duncan.
Just seconding. I'm assuming Trustee Whitaker is putting a motion on the floor, and if so, I'm just seconding.
Okay. Motion is moved and seconded. Trustee Whitaker and Trustee Duncan, you're welcome to motivate further if you want, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed, that's unanimous. Okay, we'll go to B12, Trustee Whitaker. Go ahead, please.
Okay, that is your emails that you had mentioned, and I need to find that. Hang on. Was on the 8th of June, I believe, for anybody else looking for it. Okay, so this is from Karen Kirkpatrick, MLA of the West Vancouver Capilano, and she's sent, I'm assuming, the board chair an email writing about funding and being diminished for capital projects. So Chair Painter, you originally put this on there. So one, I was interested in why you wanted to put it on there. And two, I did want to provide the opportunity for the board to discuss how capital funding does feel like it is drying up since the announcement of the museum. But I would also like to hear the chairs, since you originally put it on.
Yeah, and so a couple things, Trustee Whitaker, you've already elucidated the reason in your second point, so I won't repeat that. This was one of, trying to remember what the number was, I believe 7 or 8 letters that went to board chairs in the province to school districts who had either had capital spending frozen or projects diverted away from the schedule. And so MLA Kirkpatrick, as the official opposition critic for education, was doing their work as the official opposition spokesperson for that role in reaching out to board chairs. As it is my job to serve the board, I wanted to provide the board with the letter and seek guidance on how the board would like to respond, follow up, discuss in much the same way that you, Trustee Whitaker, have enumerated the reasons to bring this to the board. So that was my rationale for bringing it forward. So Trustee Whitaker, I put it back to you. I think you wanted to start on the dialogue. I'm happy to put the floor to you as well.
Right. Well, I mean, I think maybe it's a matter of a notice of motion. I don't think that correspondence is the place to necessarily get deep into emotion, where I do think we should be writing an advocacy letter to government about what we're seeing. I don't know if the chair wants to further move on that, but I mean, definitely we are seeing and feeling the restrictions, and they have increased since the announcement of building a museum. And, you know, I think as partners in education with the nations, I guess I'm really kind of upset about the museum, and I really am challenged by us doing this. I don't think this is, again, the place for that discussion, but I do think that there should be discussions about what could perhaps be even better. I mean, I personally would love to see artifacts in the areas where they come from, and allow the nations in those areas to be able to tell their own story with their artifacts, rather than having those individuals have to come to Victoria to have that educational experience. So I guess there's 2 points there, is I guess my views on what would be a better educational experience or opportunity for students, as well as, you know, I'm very concerned that there isn't capital available to do the things that we should be doing with our buildings. So sure, maybe we can make a notice of motion for something for advocacy come September, because we really are at the end of the year.
Yeah, and just for your edification on that piece, and for those who are watching, and this may or may not address what, you know, either remotely or fulsomely your concerns, but I did send a letter as instructed by the board to the Minister of Education regarding budget constraints. It was a more broad letter, I believe it was about 4 or 5 pages around the budget constraints that we are currently experiencing, including the annual facilities grant funding we get a year, which is $4.4 million, and our maintenance deficit, which is $319 million, and then continuing to discuss through 5 different points what I thought the province should be doing to help school districts, not just ours, but across the province, ameliorate those challenges. So if you have had a chance to read that, fantastic, and perhaps that does address some of your concerns, but a notice of motion is certainly in order. If you'd like to move on at the end of the meeting, that is absolutely fine. Do any other trustees want to discuss the B12 letter from MLA Kirkpatrick? Trustee Duncan, go ahead, please.
I'm just wondering if we can provide a response to her email. So to direct the board chair to respond to the MLA's letter and provide what information we can from our district's perspective. I think that, you know, where we can contribute to a healthy dialogue within the legislature, and obviously the official opposition is a key component in having that important and respectful dialogue back and forth with government. If we can contribute to that by providing information about what is happening at a local level in our school district, I think we should. And I think we've all in previous meetings over the last couple of weeks expressed our concerns about the impact that the museum project will have. So maybe move a motion, and if there's a seconder to support a response from the chair to the MLA.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Duncan, seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Duncan, I wonder if you would consider and this could certainly, although I know friendly amendments don't exist, but we call them friendly because if no one objects, that's friendly essentially. In terms of my response, are you wanting me to copy anybody in the response or simply send it to Emily Kirkpatrick? I'm just thinking of the third party, Green Party may also want to be privy to those thoughts to ensure that all parties in the legislature have the benefit of our insight. I believe MLA Adam Olson from Saanich North Islands is the education critic for the Green Party, but I'm admittedly not sure. I'm happy to take more general direction if you'd like, or if the board just wants me to respond to Emily Kirkpatrick, I can do that too. But just a thought.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I appreciate that. I think in terms of, I hadn't actually thought about who should be copied in, but I think it's a good suggestion to make sure that all the relevant parties and all the political parties in the legislature receive a copy and are equally well informed about what's happening in our district. So I think it's a good suggestion. I hope that colleagues would support that. I don't know if it needs to be in the motion. I mean, I think it's a good suggestion, and I certainly would support it.
If my colleagues are fine with me determining how to go forward without specific direction, I think I can probably manage that. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor? And any opposed? Any abstentions? And that is unanimous. Thank you. I believe that was all the correspondence, so we'll go to trustee reports. C2, Trustee Duncan, annual committee report.
Can Chair? Can I, just before you go past Chair's report, just at our last meeting, I had brought up the Vista meeting and you said it was just coming up, but now there's no report. So I'm wondering what happened with the Vista meeting.
I'm going to have to double check. With that, I don't have anything in front of me at this moment with the Vista meeting, and it is admittedly fallen off of my radar. I believe it's happening either this week or next, but I may have also, it's a little off my radar right now.
It happened a few weeks ago.
Sure. So then it's highly likely that I've missed it. There may have been a conflict with my own schedule. But I have to check back with my notes.
So I guess I would ask then, so if you don't attend a meeting, do you not ask somebody else to attend that meeting for you?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into a debate here, Trustee Whitaker, as I've said.
I guess because I do have a reason behind that.
Yeah, Trustee Whitaker, if you allow me to finish, you've asked me a question, I'd like the respect to finish if I could. I don't have notes in front of me at this point to respond to that question adequately. I'm happy to refer and see what has transpired and to return with hopefully a more fulsome answer than I have now. And if you have a follow-up question, I'm happy to take that under advisement, but I don't have an answer at this moment.
Yeah, so I do have a follow-up. I think it's really important that all trustees have all of the knowledge about what's going on in our organizations. And I can help you out, Chair Painter. You did not go to the meeting. And I guess my bigger question is who else did you send? And it sounds like you've dropped the ball on this one. Fine. But again, what that's doing is only the chair is getting notice. Only the chair had the opportunity to go, and only the chair would have been able to share that information. So I will also be I'm giving, I guess, notice here in this section as to why. Is I would like to, in September, I'll give a notice of motion at the end of the meeting to create an official Vista rep for the board. I don't think it's reasonable that the chair is the only one that is taking that responsibility. It's a big responsibility. And now all of us as trustees don't know what happened. And that I think we need to ensure that all trustees are included. The BCSTA is supposed to be for all of us, not just the board chair. So that will be my notice of motion.
Yep, we got it. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Moving on to trustee reports, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple of reports in the pack-up, and these are reports, annual reports, which trustees are responsible to bring in June each year, just outlining our activities on each of the committees that we serve on. And so you'll see in the pack up under C2A an annual budget advisory trustee report, and at C2A II, a annual trustee report in relation to the school police liaison officer program review committee. And so I'm happy to take questions on those two reports, and look forward to receiving my colleagues' reports in due course.
Thank you, trustees. Any comments or questions on Trustee Duncan's report? Elaine, go ahead, please.
Just wanting to know if you think that your police liaison committee will have a some kind of recommendation before this board's term is up, so that you're not moving forward with new trustees and trying to get it up to speed and losing all the good work that your committee's been doing. So do you have an ETA on that final report?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. Thank you, Trustee Leonard, for your question. My hope is that after the outcome of the judicial review proceedings, that we'll have our stakeholders and rights holders return to that table, as well as other tables. But in particular, that table, I'm aware of the need to complete our work. We were in the process of putting together recommendations to bring to the board. We were hoping by late spring, and so, you know, I hope that we have a judicial review decision soon this summer, and that in early fall we can reconvene and complete that work. I can't guarantee that it'll be before an election in October, but certainly my intention is, and I'm sure the superintendent may also have comments about that, but certainly my hope and my intention is to try to reconvene the committee with everyone around the table as soon as possible in September.
Oh, I'm on mute. Elaine, are you satisfied with that? Okay, Jordan.
Just a heads up that the terms of reference should be amended, as currently it is asking for a report, a final report from the committee in June 2021. And so I recognize we're a year past that now. So I think it would be great for the board to have a clear sense of what the timeline is. Certainly the board sets the timeline for the committee, and I think this is a pretty critically important issue for our community. So perhaps in September we could get that kind of an update and update the terms of reference, so that we're all sort of crossing those T's and dotting the I's and making sure that we're keeping things on track.
Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thanks to the chair, to Trustee Waters. We'll certainly make a note of a need to review the terms of reference when we do reconvene. Through the chair, to my colleagues, you'll be aware, of course, of the regular updates that Superintendent Whitten and I provided through Ed Policy, and tried to do that on a quarterly basis just to keep everybody up to date on the work of the committee, because of course we were aware that our work was extended and elongated, and the schedule was certainly longer than we anticipated. It took longer than we anticipated, but it is important work. It is delicate and nuanced work to bring a very diverse group of folks around a table to discuss matters that are difficult at times. Takes time. And in order to build those bridges and create a safe environment for us to have those difficult conversations, took some time. And so, you know, I'm proud of the work that the committee did up until we lost some members, but I'm hopeful, you know, we are in that final phase of work, and I'm hopeful that as soon as the committee can reconvene with all the members present, that we'll be able to bring something meaningful for the board to consider.
Okay, thank you. Anything further on Trustee Duncan's committee report? Seeing none, we'll go to Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. So as well, I have a year-end report for the Advocacy Committee, which is there for you. There was nothing really assigned to the Advocacy Committee, as the original motion in June of 2021, which was to draft a needs budget, was passed on to the Budget Committee as it was more relevant to their work. So
Any discussion or comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move to the board committee reports. D1, draft minutes from June 6, 2022 are for information, and we have 2 recommended motions coming out of the Education Policy and Directions Committee. Recommended motions from June 6, 2022. Number 1, policy 13301. Sorry, pardon me, 1330.1, childcare. The Board of Education of School District 61 Greater Victoria approved policy 1330.1, childcare. Can I have a motion to move, please? Moved by Elaine. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Jordan. Discussion on this policy for childcare. Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll go to II, policy, social media use. Recommended motion of the Board of Education of School District 61 approve new policy, social media use. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Elaine. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Angie. Thank you. Any discussion on
Point of order, Chair, because these are coming from our standing committees. I don't think we need movers and seconders, do we?
Oh, yes. Well, I think you're right. I've typically been doing that just to have them moved formally, but you can or you don't have to. I guess I stick a little bit closer to just liking a set mover and a seconder. Anyways, it is on the floor. Trustee Whitaker.
Okay, so I do have some amendments. And if we start with 1.3.
Sorry, Trustee Whitaker, I'm just gonna jump in. If you can let us know what page of the packet you're on, that will help us.
Well, you know, it is, I must admit, it's a bit confusing. I'm going to go, I guess, with 64, even though there's another one with strikeouts. Let's use the one that starts on page 64. Okay, so under 1.3, first, I want to strike the second use. Currently, it reads responsible personal and professional use of social media use will ensure. I just figure, can we strike the second use there?
Okay. Any objection to striking use? The second. Not seeing any. Trustee Whitaker, continue.
Okay, so in the same line, I would also like to strike personal. So then it will read responsible professional use of social media will ensure the role. Well, let's just start with that. I'll start with the personal piece. And the reason that sorry.
No, go ahead.
So the reason I want to strike the personal is in our last conversation, it was confirmed by staff that when we are talking about this social media use, we aren't talking about individuals' personal social media accounts. We are talking about those accounts reflected through school district use, school district applications, et cetera, we aren't in a position to police what people are doing on their personal accounts. And I don't actually think that we have jurisdiction over that. So I think we need to remove that personal there. I don't know if you want
objection to removing personal from that line, and I want to hear from staff if there are concerns as well with removing that, but anything from trustees or staff? I'm not seeing any jumps or objections. Okay, so let's strike personal. Trustee Whitaker, continue.
Okay, so I'm still picking at 1.3. So then it reads, so it will ensure the role, reputation, and interests of the entire district. I would like to strike role and reputation so that then it will read, will ensure the interests of the entire district employees and students are protected.
Okay. Is there objection to that by trustees or staff? So we're going to strike removing, we're going to strike role, reputation, and.
I can read all of the amendments in the line if you want.
Yeah, let's go one by one. I think that.
Okay.
I think we're there, Trustee Whitaker, but I appreciate that. Elaine, go ahead.
I don't mind the role being taken out, but the reputation, I think, should be left in.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay, so Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
I just wonder if we could have a brief conversation about the issue of whether reputation is left in or not. I guess my concern, the reason I liked Trustee Whitaker's suggestion is I think it makes it more straightforward, less room for, subjectivity. One person's idea of, reputational damage and another person's is, arguably very different. And I think that the goal here is, and I think that the point of the latter part of this sentence is addressed by the word interests of the entire district employees and students, and arguably the idea of protecting one's interests, it could be a myriad of different interests. But yeah, so I actually liked Trustee Whitaker's suggestion.
Okay, trustees, so we've got a couple options here. What would we like to go with? Trustee Whitaker, is there something you want to stick to? Do you want to move a formal motion? Because it sounds like we've got a bit of a difference of opinion here, unless Trustee Leonard has any further thoughts.
Within that, I mean, that is why I originally struck the two, was because I do believe interest is very broad and it allows each individual who could be concerned or offended by something that was on social media, it allows them to still, if it's about their interest could be their reputation. It could be, an event that they're trying to plan or whatever, right? Like, I just thought that interest provided that broad perspective. I think when you do reputation, now you have the opportunity for personal conflict as to who determines what is reputation and what is, well, I'm allowed to say that, right? If it's about the interests of each individual, you take away a lot of that sort of ability to have your personal opinion of what's right and what's not.
Sure. I'm going to go back to Trustee Leonard one more time and see if she is convinced or if we need to go to a formal motion.
I will not remove reputation. I think it needs to be there. I think people have to be able to read this, and interests, I think, is too broad and they're not getting the point with the word interest. So the role was fine for me to have been taken out, but I'm sticking with reputation.
All right, so then let's have a motion, Trustee Whitaker, if you could please, so we can get this moving forward.
So which motion do you want, for the whole thing or just the one word?
No, just this part. We're current the role reputation piece, just
Okay,
on that one.
so the motion is to strike role and reputation.
And the word and. You want that gone too, I imagine.
I'm sure you can get rid of that too.
Okay, can I have a seconder, please? Trustee Duncan seconds. Is there discussion on this? For me, I'm actually going to agree. I believe we need to keep reputation in here. I really appreciate the rationale for wanting to get rid of role. And I appreciate the argument around reputation, but I do think we need to keep it in here because it is important. And as I've noted before, Government of BC policy also talks about reputation within its social media policy use guidelines. And I think that is an important piece to ensure that personnel take note of when they use social media, that there is a reputation aspect here. So I would like to keep that in. So I won't be supporting this amendment. Any other trustees? Trustee Waters, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I won't be supporting it either. And I'll just point to what UBCM is doing in the provincial government. To me, this is a sort of a critical piece of those models that we looked at when we were developing this policy. So while we may have different ideas about it, it's still a sort of a critical hinge point in terms of what responsible social media use needs to be.
Okay. Any other debate? Seeing none, all those in favor of removing role, reputation, and leaving just interests, please vote. And those opposed to removing those, please vote. And the motion is defeated. Trustee Whitaker, back to you.
Sorry.
Nope, now you're muted.
Sorry, you're back to me. I'm sorry. So 1.4. This one, I want to strike for the purpose of achieving the visions, goals, and objectives described by the MOE and the school district. So then it would read instead, this policy intended to guide the use of social media, period. This policy applies to district trustees, employees, and students. I'm not sure why the social media is to guide the purpose of the Ministry of Education and the school district. I think social media is probably about whatever the person that's using it wants to use it for. I'm sure it's for learning math or for communicating with parents, but not for achieving the vision, goals, and objectives of the Ministry of Education.
Okay, so the suggestion is to put a period in the first line after media, to strike the remainder of that sentence and start the new sentence at this
Actually, sorry, as I turn the page, and I think actually for students, and then I want to insert while using school district social media resources.
While using school district social media resources. So adding that,
Yeah.
that's a lot in one, but I think it's enough. Trustees, how are we feeling? And do staff have concerns about striking the portion after social media? And trustees, please speak up as well if you have any concerns. Trustee Leonard.
Can Trustee Whitaker read the sentence as she's intending it to be in its entirety, please?
Yeah, sorry about that, Elaine. I didn't flip the page fast enough. So this policy is intended to guide the use of social media. And this policy applies to trustees, employees, and students while using School District 61 social media resources or applications. If I'm not using the right tech term, please correct me.
I think the resources is fine. I think the intent is understood, at least I understand it. So I think that's fine. Do we have any concerns, trustees or staff, around that change? If not, I think we can just approve that by consent as a block. If nobody is objecting, let's move by consent. I'm seeing no objections, so we'll move that by consent. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
Nobody else wants to go? Okay.
If anyone else would like to go, we can give Trustee Whitaker maybe a water break. If anyone else has anything to add, I'm not seeing any hands flying up. So Trustee Whitaker, the ball is in your court.
Okay, so we're going to go to 3.2, and 3.2 then has a little dot point. So let's talk about the first point, which in it says, hang on. Oh, remember that social media supports two-way conversations, and we had that. So it's in the first point and then the middle of the next 3 points. So remember that social media supports two-way conversations. I think that the intent to what this is saying is that you're supposed to know that somebody could respond to you. But what I'm reading from it, that this is a good way to have two-way conversations. And I don't believe that social media is what we want to promote out there in the world as how we want parents and students communicating with us, or our staff and our students communicating with each other. We have official processes and ways that should be happening. And we come to a place later in the document where we encourage them to go to their school. And that's what we should be doing. So maybe some people can give that thought, or maybe it's the remove the remember, just that social media can be a two-way conversation, but it's not a remember. I don't know. I struggle with this line and the way it's reading.
Okay, trustees, do you have any wording that you think you'd like to see there in this? Just if I may, Trustee Whitaker, just speaking personally as somebody who works in this field on a day-to-day basis, I agree with you. And this isn't to sound weird. I agree and I disagree. So I agree because two-way conversations do not happen well on social media, but I tell my clients that if they are trying to converse with their clients, customers, that social media is to be used to create an opportunity or an environment for two-way communication. So I hear what you're saying.
So maybe
yeah.
I do have the amendment. Maybe we can strike remember and say, and remember and that, strike both of those. Social media can be a two-way conversation.
Okay. I don't have an issue with that. Trustees, do you have any concerns? We can move that by consent. Okay, we're good. I saw Trustee Duncan put her hand up. So Trustee Whitaker, you can
just want to say, yep, I like that.
Oh, great. Okay, back to Trustee Whitaker then.
Okay, so again, under 3.2 in the second bullet, it lists the code of conduct, technology usage, etc. So I believe that these are actually school district policies. I believe that, and please, this is a question, the technology usage, is that what we have students sign to the superintendent through the chair? Where it lists, first it says code of conduct, which I believe is to apply to trustees. And then it says technology use. Is that the student document that they would be signing?
I believe so, but I'd have to check on that. I believe that we checked earlier with Andy, but I would want to double check on that before confirming.
Yeah, because I know that there is a specific form. So one, I wanted it, that was one of my questions, was to confirm that we actually wrote the name of the form that the students are signing, because this document is covering both student, staff, and trustees. So I thought it was important for them and for their parents, if they were looking at it, to see that, you know what, there is actually a policy that you and your students sat down in, you know, third week of September in a pack of forms and signed, right? And that was my second point on this, is because these, I believe, are policies of the school district, can we put the numbers in or even hyperlink these so that people can access those when they're reading it? Because right now, is that the school code of conduct? Is it the trustee code of conduct? I really think, especially where social media is the new discussion area, and obviously there's a lot of gray and we're still working things out, the more opportunities we have to provide those links to what we're talking about is better. So maybe that can be inserted after, but that's my thought on those. Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Secretary Treasurer Morse, go ahead.
I just wonder if it's possible, we know the trustee code of conduct will be easy to reference. I think school codes of conduct are all individual, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying to do all, like, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But just the ones that we can, for me, it was really important that there was at least the one for the students and the parents, and the, you know, the bullying harassment one, I think, is there. But of course, you could say school code of conduct and trustee code of conduct, but.
Yeah, thank
you. Anything further on that piece? Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, just on the point around school codes of conduct, appreciating that each school will build its own code of conduct. I do like the idea that Trustee Whitaker is suggesting around at least pointing folks to where they can find theirs, even if we don't include, 27 elementary school hyperlinks to codes of conduct. I think just saying you can find something in a note section saying, you can find your school code of conduct on your school website, something like that, to at least direct people, I think would be great.
Trustee Leonard?
Could you add it under the reference section at the bottom? School codes of conduct can be found on individual school websites.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's fine. It's a good reference. Trustee Duncan, is that amenable? Or are you amenable?
That's a great idea. Yeah, no, that sounds good to me. Thanks for the suggestion.
Okay. Anything further from trustees on this policy?
3.3.
Let's do it. 3.3.
So 3.3, there's the first point, which says official district social media sites are maintained by district staff, full stop. And then there's another line, which I believe needs to be its own separate bullet. So if we can do that, district social media tools will not be used to promote commercial activities, personal opinions, or political campaigns. So I think that those are two separate points altogether. So I wanted those broken out.
I think that's fine. And I would even say, I think that that's an important second piece to highlight. So thank you.
Okay, and then when I read the last bullet, staff will endeavor to provide a timely response. This is where we speak about contacting your principal. So I kind of think this one also sort of needs to be rewritten in a way that really puts the school as the front and center, as the where parents should be communicating first and not on social media. I know that they can, but I guess that my next question for how this is worded, where I came up with and I said, whoa, I'm not really happy about that, is because what if a question was asked on social media? And this is a question through the chair to the superintendent or whoever needs to answer it. If a question was asked on social media, would the response on social media be considered an official response?
No, if I understand your question correctly, if it came via social media, I don't believe a response via social media would be the appropriate or response we would be looking for.
Right. And so I guess that's my piece with 3.3 is we don't clarify that. Yes, there might be a response on social media, but that's not where we are sending parents and students to get their information or to make a complaint or to raise a concern because the lawns weren't mowed. You need to take those things to your principal and to the school. So I think that in this one, that bottom piece, that bottom line needs to be edited. And I see Trustee Duncan, maybe she's got a great suggestion.
Go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Well, I wouldn't call it great, but I might be simple to simply just, get rid of the first part. So I don't know if it's important to say that staff endeavor to provide a timely response to social media inquiries. However, I would suggest to achieve what Trustee Whitaker is suggesting, which I think is a really good suggestion, we just get rid of that first part up to the word however, and we simply say correspondence, general information requests and concerns requiring timely response, or just requiring response or action without the timely bit, should be submitted directly to the board office, respective school, or appropriate department via phone, email, or in person. I think that gives some flexibility to people. It provides different appropriate channels of communication, and it directs people to the various possible recipients of that communication. So I don't know if that would work, but.
Am I understanding that, sorry if I've missed in the back and forth here, that the only thing we're striking is the first line up to the endeavor and then starting with correspondence? Or sorry, I feel like I've missed something.
No, that's it. So we would remove staff endeavor to provide a timely response to social media inquiries, however, and then the bullet would simply start with correspondence, general information requests and concerns requiring timely response or action should be submitted directly to the board office, respective school, or appropriate department via phone, email, or in person.
Sure.
And I would suggest we even maybe, Chair, consider getting rid of timely, because I don't know if it's really, again, about, to speak to Trustee Whitaker's point, I don't think it's really about whether something needs to be provided timely. It's just about appropriate channel of communication.
What?
Is that right?
Yeah, so I hear that. For my part, I actually think that's first line for me is important because I think it provides context for folks who are looking at this policy, especially under social media management. I think it's important to provide an understanding that things that are coming through to staff, it will be responded to in a timely manner. And we do that with automatic responses in our emails, or at least I do. And I think it's important to provide that for folks so they understand that the staff who are receiving these will make an effort to respond, because if I see this as if someone from the public is providing input, be it general correspondence, information requests, or concerns, and they're not aware or there is no context around that kind of timely response, they're going to say, well, where's my response, right? And I think it's important that we set this context in a policy so that we can point to it and say, yeah, we've said that a timely response will be endeavored in every opportunity. So for me, just for me, I think that first is crucial to maintain a kind of foundational toehold for this piece of the policy. But that's just me. Trustees, how are we feeling about this suggestion to strike the first line and everything up to however, and starting with correspondence, and then removing timely as well? I think was the suggestion. Trustee Whitaker?
Yeah, I would just thank Trustee Duncan that's why we need to work together, because I could not figure out how to fix that. And I do really like that without a lot of amendments. That really, really helps to bring it together. So I thank you for that.
Okay. Do we have any other trustees commenting on this recommended change? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call, I think, well, yeah, is there a motion on the floor? I think, no, we're looking for consent. Is there consent to do this? And I'm going to say I don't.
I think it's a big change. I think we need a motion.
Yeah, I agree. So can I have a formal motion for this, Trustee Duncan, please? Because I think you've said it, but in terms of the wording, but can you just move it formally?
Sure, I'll move that.
Thank you.
Do you want me to read it again?
No, I think we can.
Okay.
I trust we have it. Trustee Whitaker, do you want to second, I'm assuming? Yeah, I thought so. Thank you. Any discussion?
Close. I'll close if nobody else is going to. I really think that while I hear that you would like to have the timely response, I have no problem with putting social media management and having that as a separate bullet. I think what is important, and the piece that I was trying to get across, is that critical importance of parents understanding that you don't put a post on social media and use that. Like, you don't post on social media to say, what time is the field trip today? Or is the field trip going to be tomorrow? Any of those things. Social media is not for that. You need to go to the school and not be sitting waiting for a timely response on that. I'm not at all opposed to staff endeavor to provide a timely response to social media inquiries. Full stop. I mean, maybe we need to make that amendment and then have this as a second bullet. But I do think it's really important that we split those 2 points out.
So, Trustee Whitaker, I would be willing to accept an amendment.
Okay, so maybe I'm amending the amendment to that I think that it is 2 clauses, and that's why we talked these things out. I knew that something wasn't working, and that sounds like it covers it all.
So we're going to be a little bit lenient, and trustees, I'm under your direction. Typically, we wouldn't allow it because this is, I think, a substantial change to what's here, but it also isn't necessarily a substantial change. So if trustees are okay, the amendment to the amendment would be that staff endeavor to provide a timely response to social media inquiries, full stop, sentence. Next bullet, capital C, correspondence, and then the rest flows from that in another bullet of its own, correct?
With the omission of timely response.
With the omission of timely response.
Or timely, right?
Trustee Duncan, is that?
Yeah, just removing the word timely, which is would be addressed by the first bullet and is not relevant to the second point.
Okay. I think I can live with this personally, just speaking on the amendment to the amendment. This satisfies my concern for getting rid of that first piece. I think that's important. And generally speaking, concerns that require a response, timely response, I think I'm amenable to striking that. I generally think I understand what Trustee Whitaker and Duncan are trying to get to with this. So I think this gets us there. So trustees, how are you feeling about this? Please feel free to speak up if you have concerns about what's being changed here, or if you don't understand, we want you to be clear. So the amendment to the amendment is on the floor. Trustee Leonard.
I'd like it read again. I'm a little confused.
Sure, so I'm going to read it out. So the first bullet will say, staff endeavor to provide a timely response to social media inquiries, full stop. Next new bullet, capital C, correspondence, that's what the next new bullet starts with. Correspondence, general information requests and concerns requiring response, striking timely, requiring response or action should be submitted directly to the board office, respective school, or appropriate department via phone, email, or in person.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. So we're now on to the amended amendment, which essentially now puts 2 bullet points in front of us. We have to vote on that, and then we can vote on the main motion as amended. So can you please vote on the amended amendment? All those in favor? Yeah, I know Trustee Whitaker's looking at me, but that's how this works, because we're too deep. We're too deep now. So that passes. So now we're on the motion as amended, which is now 2 bullet points. All those in favor, please signify. Fantastic. That passes unanimously. Back to Trustee Duncan, or sorry, Trustee Whitaker, for further review of the policy.
3.6, third point. So this is about compliance, and in it we state unauthorized or inappropriate use of district internet, email, and social media will result in the loss of access. And whatever, go on. So my issue is I would like to change that will to may. And the reason I do that again is this is for all for students, employees, and trustees. And my hope is in this district that if a student makes an error on social media, that while adults are around, that we use it as a learning opportunity while we're able to monitor their future use to confirm that they are now in compliance and understand that the mistake that they made, whatever way that they did post using that social media, that we would, if repeatedly this was an offense, that then we would stop their access. But I would like to believe that we would use it as a learning opportunity and for improvement, rather than that's it, so sad, no more for you.
So Trustee Whitaker, I appreciate that. I'm wondering, because I was looking at this one myself, and I'm wondering, instead of saying will result in loss of access.
I said may, I want it to be
No,
amended.
no, I hear you, but sorry, just give me a sec. Instead of will or may, I'm saying, could we strike the suggestion and say will result in corrective action? Perhaps that's too strong, but I think it's important to keep a piece in there that allows for a correct course of action to take place without us being prescriptive of what that might be. If it's determined that the act is severe enough, and I know what you're trying to say with may, but I do think for me, I want to see a bit more alternatives in there to correct the action that was taken that would result in some kind of review of the use. That's just me. But anyways, that's my thought. Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I appreciate your intention, and I prefer the language that Trustee Whitaker is suggesting, just because I think it again provides some flexibility for, again, using the example of a local school-based issue involving a student, for instance. It gives some flexibility for each incident to be kind of considered on a case-by-case basis, and it doesn't introduce sort of overly or potentially overly punitive language, because I think in the spirit of what Trustee Whitaker is suggesting, we want to have a policy that can be applied in a flexible case-by-case sort of manner. And we know that at the school-based level, there are in fact mechanisms that staff can use, for instance, the code of conduct to address behavior that falls short. So I would prefer the use of may, but interested to hear what my other colleagues think.
If I can provide maybe one more suggestion, could we say may result in corrective action up to and including loss of access? Because my desire here is to get something in here that allows some flexibility for staff to bring in some, whatever form of corrective action they seem is necessary. Right now here, all I'm seeing in this piece is loss of access. Yeah,
Point
Trustee
of
Whitaker.
clarification, the last line after that clearly states, sorry,
Yeah, I see.
and
it.
depending on the seriousness of their infraction may result in disciplinary action, which I think is covering that. What I'm trying to do is just say to remove the definitive that if you do this, because here's what I'm concerned about is that one student makes a mistake and the parent against another student, and the parent of the other student says, that's it. This student is never going to be, because this is what's in the policy. They are not allowed because this is what the policy says, that they will now be denied access. Now, I'm not saying that I want anybody or our students to be making these mistakes on social media, but certainly when or if, because it's a matter of time, somebody's going to do it. We're all learning. That's what education's about. That I want there to be that discussion, the opportunity for restorative justice if it's between students, the opportunity for two colleagues to be able to have a conversation because maybe they just don't understand what they're saying, right? So I just want to remove the definitive. I still want there to be disciplinary action should there be that need and progressively, but it just shouldn't be a definitive thing.
Sure. All right, I'm still not convinced with the language, but we'll see what the board determines. Elaine.
Could we maybe hear from the superintendent to see if, because may is in the last part of the sentence too, so the two mays may flow, and just because it says may result in the loss of access, if you had may, there are other avenues that the school could do in the second part of it. But I just want to know superintendent's perspective, please.
Superintendent, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I do believe that changing it to may would allow for each individual case to be seen and heard, and also to allow for the learning to occur. I also am aware this is a policy, so you may see something different or supportive in a regulation.
Okay. Elaine, go ahead.
Yeah, so I can live with the changing of it, the will to may, without changing any of the other wording. I think, like Superintendent has said, the regulations may have more meat and potatoes for schools to look at. So I can live with the change.
Okay, thank you. So are we all in agreement? I will, so that we can move forward to change will to may. Any objection? Nope. Consented. Trustee Whitaker.
I'm done.
So I want to just reconsider an earlier change if we could, which I've been bouncing around in my head since we got to it, or since we moved past it, which was very early on. And just hold on a sec. So wait, where am I? I'm sorry, trustees, I'm trying to find it. Where is it here? I think I'm gonna have to do a search. Oh no, I'm back up in childcare. My apologies, trustees. There's a lot of pages here. There we go. So I'd like to go back to 1.3 and reconsider the removal of personal. And my rationale for doing that is because I feel that, especially when it comes to those who are going to be overseen by this policy, the personal and the professional can sometimes overlap. And I think it's important that, especially as it pertains to a social media policy, we need to be as inclusive as we can to ensure that we are protecting not just the role, reputation, and interests of the entire district employees, students, and everybody, including those who may run counter to this policy. And I feel that taking personal out, it might leave us in a bit of a bind when it comes to this specific policy 1.3, and it does concern me. So I'd like to reconsider. So I'm going to move a motion, just because I want to make this formal, that we reconsider striking personal from 1.3. Can I get a seconder, please? If there is
I'll second.
Thanks, Jordan. I've given my rationale. I'll open the floor for debate on this. Trustee Whitaker.
So I have a question for you. How will you enforce this? How will you enforce people using or saying things on their personal social media? Like,
so with respect, I'm not the enforcer. One trustee, but I would ask staff, because they're the ones who will be responsible for overseeing and regulating and ensuring that the enaction of this policy is put through. So to staff, in terms of putting the personal back in, what are your feelings about places where this comes into play with regards to this policy, Superintendent or Secretary Treasurer?
Secretary Treasurer Morris, do you have comment? Or I can begin.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead and start.
Well, I was going to say that I don't know as much that it's about us or staff monitoring every single social media tweet or post that's presented, but I do think it comes to our attention as they are presented, either by others or as we come across them. So I do think that there's a line between what we're monitoring, managing minute to minute, to what comes to us as an inappropriate or a social media post that is from a personal account that is not in alignment with the role, reputation, and interests of the district. So I think when that comes to us, then we do have a duty to respond.
Okay. Secretary Treasurer Morris, you're welcome to follow up if you'd like, or I can go back to trustees.
I think the superintendent has encapsulated it.
Okay. Trustee Whitaker?
Yeah, I would just seek clarification when through the chair to the superintendent, when you said that we have a duty to respond. Can you please expand on that and explain to me what does that mean?
Well, I think in some instances we've seen things that have been posted that are not true or factual or they're inaccurate, and whether they're posted from a personal account or from a professional account, I think we do have an obligation when we see that to either correct it or ask that the individual correct it themselves or repost factual information or accurate. I find that when we see these things, if we don't act on them, then we're in essence condoning them, and it's challenging.
Okay.
Trustee Whitaker, back to you.
Okay, so
I'm just noting. I'd like to button this policy up if we could, and then I've got Jordan on deck.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand this shift where we all voted on it before. So please allow me the time to get a further understanding. So if somebody posted something incorrectly on their personal account, you're saying that yes, the school district would correct it. I agree with that. That has nothing to do with the social media enforceable policy on somebody's personal account. Of course we would correct it. And that would be no different if somebody said that, Wendy's has got rats in their hamburgers. Wendy's would correct it. And then they would also be allowed to do some civil claim of some sort if they wanted to. So I guess I'm still confused, and you could ask them to correct it, but I just don't understand how that comes into line with us being able to. I don't believe that you write anything in policy that you can't enforce. I think it's outside of our jurisdiction, as much as, yes, I do believe that the school district should respond if there is something like that, but I don't understand how it goes into a policy that we can tell people on their personal account, specifically because I'm thinking about students. I'm not always thinking, I guess, adults should act differently, but this policy covers everybody.
Sure. I'm going to go to, unless Superintendent had a follow-up.
Well, I do, in the sense, this is in the rationale section, so I think we're speaking about it from the rationale behind the policy and what we see in front of us. So it is intended to guide the use of social media for the purpose of achieving the policy. So I think this is rationale around whether it's posted from a personal account or a professional account. We're looking for it to align with the interests of the district. I don't know if I can explain it any differently, but I do understand Trustee Whitaker's question.
Thanks, Superintendent. Jordan, go ahead.
I was just going to point out similarly, its placement within the policy and just sort of remind us of what the role of a policy is to communicate our organizational values and philosophy, like policy statements versus regulations. So, you know, it's not about what can and cannot be enforced. It's about setting our expectations and our standards. And I think there's a lot of different examples of that. And, you know, in the implementation of almost all of our policies, it's not punitive. It's not, you know, like there's some surveillance going on. Like if you look at the sexual and gender identity, sexual orientation, gender identity policies that we have around gender identity and gender expression, you know, there's clear statements of what we expect of how people will be treated in our buildings. You know, how can we make sure there aren't microaggressions? Can we make sure that people aren't making mistakes? No, of course we can't, but that is the expectation that we have. And when that expectation isn't met, then, you know, we do, there is a challenge there that needs to be addressed in some way or another. So to me, that personal piece, I think, is important, because we are all responsible for what we're putting out there. And as one learning community, we're responsible for how we impact other people on social media, our students, staff, trustees, all of us. And there isn't a clear line between personal, professional, or whatever that is. It's like we are responsible for all of it. And so that's our expectation as set out in the policy, as a statement of our organizational values and expectations. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Jordan. You said it much more clearly than I could. I'm going to go to Trustee Duncan, and then I'm going to call the question on this so we can move on. Trustee Duncan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, when I read this, I share the same concerns that Trustee Whitaker expressed earlier, that the way that this could be interpreted would put us in a position that, you know, we just we don't have the power and authority to actually act on. In particular, when it comes to personal use of social media or any communication tool, you know, I don't think we want to be placing ourselves in the position of becoming some kind of arbitrator of other people's freedom of expression. So I think, you know, there's a line, and certainly for professionals, the personal can bleed into the professional. And so I think it makes a little more sense in the context of professionals, whether it be staff or trustees. But I think the extent to which this wording of responsible personal professional use of social media could be misinterpreted or be seen to be overstepping the power and authority of the board. One way to deal with that would be to not get hung up on personal and professional, but just to remove those two words entirely and say responsible use of social media will ensure the role, reputation, and interests of the entire district employees and students are protected. Because I think that's the key essential point, is that our cultural values when it comes to the responsible use of social media is that we use it in a way that is responsible, and in doing so we will protect the role, reputation, and interests of the entire district employees, students. So that would be my suggestion, is that we don't get hung up on the words personal and professional. We simply remove those two words and get the point across, which is, as the superintendent has pointed out in the rationale section, intended to kind of give a flavor and some underpinning for, you know, what it is we're trying to achieve. So I can move a motion to simply say
it's an amendment.
Sorry, no, hold on. No, so let's just slow down really quick. So the original motion was the motion of reconsideration. So what we have to do is we have to vote on whether we do want to reconsider this or not. So once that happens, then the original motion as reconsidered is back on the table. Then an amendment can happen. So at this point, we have a motion of reconsideration on the floor. So I'm going
Point of order, Chair. Was the first one a motion to remove that word or consensus?
It was
It was
consensus.
I think it was consensus. So there
was.
shouldn't, I wouldn't think you'd need a motion to reconsider, would you?
You would, even if, because it was still.
Okay,
by
never mind. I'm
board,
fine.
Change it. So it does still need to be formally reconsidered. Yeah. So motion to reconsider is on the floor. So I'm going to call the question on the motion to reconsider 1.3 and the removal of personal. All those in favor, please signify. Opposed? Abstention? No? Okay. So the motion is reconsidered and it is back on the floor in its original state with personal in place. Trustee Duncan, you want to move an amendment?
Yeah, so my suggestion to move this forward and retain the point, I think, of 1.3 is simply to remove professional or personal and professional. And so it would read, responsible use of social media will ensure the role, reputation, and interests of the entire district, employees, and students are protected.
Do I have a seconder for that? Okay. Do you want to motivate Trustee Duncan or Trustee Whitaker?
No, I think just, yeah, I think I said what I needed to say. I think with removing it maintains the intention without us getting hung up on those two words.
Okay. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Yeah, I too, like I am struggling with the two words and I prefer removing them. I think that there's a lot more in keeping those two words there. And I think until the verdict or we hear from the judicial review as to what is said there, I would prefer to keep it very broad so that we don't perhaps later find out information that we have to change. So for me, I think that Trustee Duncan's given a really good suggestion and a good edit, which doesn't take anything away, doesn't add anything either. So I think that's good.
Okay, so for me, and the reason why I reconsidered is because I felt it was important to have personal and professional explicitly named in this 1.3 policy piece. So I won't be supporting the amendment because I think it is vital that we make sure that we are explicit about the use. I won't belabor the point, but I won't support the amendment. Other trustees? Seeing and hearing none, Trustee Duncan, I'll let you close.
I guess all I would add is that I think that it's important in this case to remove the two words so that we don't end up unintentionally getting ourselves in hot water when it comes to kind of overstepping our powers and authority, or suggesting that we have powers and authority that we do not when we're really seeking to just explain to our learning community that our board values responsible use of social media by everybody in it, and that through that responsible use, we'll protect the interests of everyone in our learning community.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. Those opposed? And the amendment fails. The original motion 1.3 is on the floor. I will call the question on that now. All those in favor of the original motion, please signify.
Clarification, what is the original motion?
The original motion, you did have strikeouts previously, so I need to be reminded of what those were.
So just to clarify, my understanding was, because the next part we did vote on, is that you're just adding the word personal. Is that the motion that we're voting on?
That's right. Yeah. It's just
the rest of the amendments stay.
The rest remains intact. It's just
Thank you.
Yeah. So all those in favor of putting personal back into the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? I think maybe Trustee Hensa is frozen, so I'm going to have to ask Trustee Hensa to clarify her vote, please.
Sorry, I totally froze up there. What's the current vote?
So it was 1.3 to re-add personal back to 1.3. The rest of the motion would remain intact. And I'll call it one more time just to make sure, because I don't want to rush ahead of trustees to vote. So again, on the motion to add personal back to 1.3, all those in favor, please signify. And those opposed? And the motion to add personal carries with trustees Duncan and Whitaker opposed. That is it for the amendments on the social media policy. I'm now going to call the question on the acceptance or the approval of the social media policy. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed, and I noticed Trustee Whitaker is away from the computer. Okay, and abstentions. So Trustee Hensa, I lost you again. I'm sorry. What was your vote on the social media policy?
Are we voting on it? I'm totally losing the track here. I'm in favor.
Okay, so that is that carries with Trustee Duncan in favor, and Trustee Whitaker had stepped out of the room, so there was no vote from Trustee Whitaker. D2, operations, policy, and planning.
My apologies.
So Trustee Whitaker, I want to get your vote on the record. So we just—
Yes, I vote in favor of it. I'm sorry. I just needed to take a quick bio break.
Well, that's fine. I just want to make sure you're on record. I don't want to run ahead. Okay, so that passes with Trustee Duncan opposed. So we'll go to D2, operations, policy, and planning committee. Draft minutes from the June 13th, 2022 meeting are for information only. We have recommended motions. Trustees, there are quite a few here. I would really like to be succinct with these as it is 9:22, as best as we can, please. So first is the recommended motion for the 2023-2024 annual 5-year capital plan. That the Board of Education of School District 61 approve the 2023-24 annual 5-year capital plan. Jordan has reminded me we don't need to move around a seconder, so we'll just say it is on the floor for debate. Thank you, Elaine. I appreciate your excited fire to get this on the floor. Any discussion on the annual 5-year capital plan 23-24? Trustee Duncan, please.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I note the time. I just wanted to say that I will not be supporting the plan this round. I'm concerned that in particular, some of the plan around the CNCP funding and our ask for gas fired boilers to replace aging infrastructure rather than electrifying, when we know most recently through our climate accountability report that in order to meet our climate and GHG reduction targets, both in 2030 and 2050, we need to electrify. And so we're asking for about 3.2 million in various for various projects under CNCP. I would rather see us asking for funding from the ministry that will move us forward on electrification. But I just wanted to say to staff, I know there's an incredible amount of work that goes into coming up with the plans and doing your due diligence. And by no means do I want you to go away from tonight thinking that I don't acknowledge and appreciate all that hard work. But I think on this point, given the urgency, the climate emergency we find ourselves in, I think from my perspective as a trustee around this table, I need to be making a statement by saying, nope, we need to move in a different direction. And so this time around, I can't support the plan.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Any further comments on the capital plan? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is passed with Trustee Duncan opposed. 2, revised policy and regulation 3170 operating surplus. The Board of Education of School District 61 approved the revisions of policy 3170 operating surplus, formerly reserves as presented. The motion is on the floor for debate. Any discussion? Seeing, Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. When we were discussing this at committee level, there was also a draft administrative regulation that we didn't get a chance to discuss. There was a commitment to bring it back to a future ops meeting. I just wanted to confirm that is the intention, because there was some pieces in that administrative regulation that do have a financial impact and that we need as a board to discuss. And so just through the chair to the superintendent, can I just get some confirmation that administrative regulation that we now call our SERP, is it called SERP? It's not board reserves anymore. We're calling it the Administrative Regulation on Board Surplus. I think we'll be coming back to the next ops meeting.
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Yes, that is possible. We can put it on the September ops agenda.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify. That carries unanimously. Thank you, trustees. We'll go to 3, revised policy 8210, orienting new board members. The Board of Education of School District 61 approved the revisions to policy 8210, orienting new board members as presented. The motion is on the floor for debate. Trustee Whitaker.
I would like to make an amendment under 1.1. I would like.
Sorry, which page are we at?
I am currently looking at page, I think it's 102.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so under 1.1, I would like to strike before said, from the word before all the way to the end. So it would then read, incumbent trustees and the superintendent shall assist each newly elected trustee to understand the board's function, policy, and procedures. What I'm deleting is before said trustee takes office, because unfortunately, any new trustees, you are going to learn on the fly. You start this game running.
Okay, that is, we can ask if there's consent. I will say I don't consent to that, so it's going to need a motion. So Trustee Whitaker, do you want to move that motion, please? And we'll get a seconder and we'll debate.
Yeah, I do. I actually think that this was what was discussed last time, and just the strikes in this one didn't go far enough. So yeah, I will make a motion to strike the words before said trustee takes.
I see what you're saying. Okay, well, perhaps I didn't actually agree when I agreed to striking it, but anyways, the motion is moved. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Duncan. Trustee Whitaker, you can motivate, although you already have, but the floor is yours if you like.
No.
So I appreciate that this was struck, and Trustee Leonard, I see your hand up. And perhaps staff can remind us, and me, because I clearly am the one who's forgetting. But I actually think before said trustee takes office is important, and I think it's exactly for the reason Trustee Whitaker said. It is like drinking from a fire hose when you come into this work. And I think any and all support that incumbent trustees, superintendent can provide is good for new trustees, especially brand new trustees. I see Secretary Treasurer Morris has her hand up, and then I'll go to Elaine. Go ahead, Secretary Treasurer Morris.
I wonder if we looked at page 104, if 1.1 isn't correct in that version.
104.
Which is the clean version.
Yeah, there it is, 104. That's right. It is there. So before said trustee takes office.
Okay,
Yeah.
then if we're working off of that one, then I will still strike that. And if on that, my rationale is an incumbent trustee has been elected. So there's really a 2-week time period. I'm not saying that, of course, we shouldn't be trying to inform all trustees as soon as we can, but the fact that you say an incumbent trustee.
I think we've lost Trustee Whitaker. Let's just give a second for Trustee Whitaker's computer to catch up. Okay. We'll get back to Trustee Whitaker's point when she comes. Elaine, go ahead.
My only point was there is a 6-week gap between when a trustee is elected and when they're sworn in and take office. So there is a 6-week window there when you can be providing information, some training, some workshops, anything that the superintendent wants to engage with a new board, and that can take place in that 6 weeks. So I would like to leave the wording as is.
Thank you, and I agree. It certainly sounded from the motivator of the motion that if you're a new trustee and you want, and this is just my impression, If you're a new trustee, tough luck, you're learning on the job because that's what everyone before did. And that's not what I think actually should be the way that this happens. That's just my perception. I think we should provide new trustees with all of the support we possibly can so they can be successful at this work. Is there any further discussion from Trustee Ann Whitaker? You're back. I'm sorry. We waited like 30 seconds.
I'm sorry. I am very sorry. When my technology goes, it really goes. I just stare at that spinning wheel. So I'm sorry, where are we?
So we are still at striking before said trustee takes office. We're still there. Trustee Leonard has said that there is a 6-week gap between the election and when trustees are sworn in. And that's should be a time when workshops or other things the superintendent determines should happen. Trustee Leonard, have I summarized that well enough? Okay, great.
Okay, I'm not opposed to that. For me, the thought is that, you know, it's important that this is a constant. Board orientation should be happening all of the time. It is not just the time period before they take election. And when I see the before there, it's limiting that time period. And I think that there should be the opportunity for all of these things to continue. I think by removing the before takes office doesn't exclude that from happening, but it doesn't exclude it from happening after they take office either.
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Any other debate? Trustee Duncan, and then I will call the question.
Yeah, that was my concern, was that, you know, some trustees, so once they're elected, they may not be available until after they're sworn in officially. Some folks, you know, plan to be available for their new role after they're sworn in, when they're officially trustees. And so I think removing before just again adds some flexibility, because I too don't think there's a problem necessarily with doing it during that 6-week period. I think we should be trying to inform new colleagues and ourselves on an ongoing basis. But equally, if it can't happen before, I also don't think that's problematic, and would expect that there may be some folks who simply can't attend and participate before they're sworn in.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close debate and call the question on striking before said trustee takes office. All those in favor of striking before said trustee takes office, please signify. Opposed? And the amendment fails. Any further amendments to this policy on board orientation? Starting at page 104, we have the new markup.
No, I think my time has come to an end with the motion.
Thank you for helping us talk through that one.
I think you misunderstand.
Okay, I think I heard most of that. Anyways, we will go to approval of the motion. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed and abstentions. Trustee Duncan, I did not get your vote on the orienting new board members.
I'm in favor.
In favor, thank you. So that is unanimous. We'll now go to new policy role of trustee that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve new policy role of the trustee. The motion is on. Yes, I'm sorry.
May I make a suggestion?
Great.
That this will be a fairly, I would think, long discussion. Either we defer this to the end of the meeting and go through all the other stuff we have to go through, or we defer it to September ops. Because I would prefer to have it at the end of the meeting and see if we get to it. But right now we have a lot of other reports to get to and a lot of other motions.
Trustees, do we have consent to bump this to the end of the agenda so we can move to the other pieces, and then if need be, we can refer it to the September board meeting? Is there any objection to that? I'm not seeing any. Okay, so it is pushed to the back of the agenda. Thank you for the suggestion, Trustee Leonard. Before we go, do we want to take a break, trustees? We've been going hard here. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, what do we want? 5, I'm seeing 5. All right, we'll adjourn for 5 minutes. Thank you, trustees. All right, if trustees can start to make their way back. Not sure why it feels so hot. It's registering at only 15 up here in View Royal, but I got my fan going full blast. Feels warm. Okay, who do we have? Just waiting for Jordan. And then we can definitely have 1 minute left. So, well, there we go. Now it's 9:41. All right, trustees, I'm going to call us back to order. Is 9:41, and we will go to the Climate Action Committee report D3. Who is reporting out on this?
Trustee Waters is reporting.
I thought maybe it was Jordan, so we will wait for Trustee Waters to come back and report out on the Climate Action Committee report.
I wonder if Angie wants to do it. No, if Jordan's got waylaid.
Possible. Angie, are you able to do the report instead of Jordan?
I know she had something written up and I don't have it in front of me.
Let's just wait. Child duties have gotten her waylaid.
We could go into the superintendent's report and come back to it.
Yeah, I was just gonna recommend that actually, because that would be fine. Okay, trustees, are we okay if we just hold, pause on D3 and come back to it? I think we're okay. Okay. E, district leadership team reports. Oh, right. Of course, it always happens.
Sorry, I had to transfer children to different beds and move down here.
Kind of thought maybe waylaid.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I thought as soon as I started, you'd come back. So we're on the Climate Action Committee report, which I believe is being reported by you.
Indeed. So the report just summarizes the work that we've done to date. It's there for your information. If I didn't feel like I was dying, not to be dramatic, but I'm having a pretty significant allergy attack right now. So I'm not going to belabor it. It's there for you. If there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Sure. Thanks, Jordan. Hopefully the Benadryl kicks in if you've taken any. Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, I was just seeking clarification of who is, I see that you've had several meetings, but who is sitting on that committee right now?
Trustee Waters.
Deb, can you take that for me? My voice is going to give out.
Superintendent, over to you.
Yeah, we have within the TOR, we have several members. Lately, though, we have had representation from the VPVPA. We've had representation from VC PAC, as well as Secretary Treasurer, myself, and Trustee Hensa, Trustee Waters, and Elders Advisory, and in support from Indigenous education with the Elders Advisory.
Thank you. Follow up, Trustee Whitaker.
And of course, we have Brian Leslie, the energy manager, and Sean Powell as well. It's John Harris and Butch Stick.
No, it just wasn't included in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, comment, or questions for Trustee Waters, or possibly through the superintendent, understanding allergies are a time of they're a thing this year. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
No, and maybe I see that you have 0.3 on the waste reduction, and I guess I just want to express, that I'm looking forward to hearing something more towards that area. I know we've been working on energy, but I'm, as you all know, I'm equally concerned about waste.
As is the committee, Trustee Whitaker. So we've had some conversations around that and we'll continue to, and it's at the forefront of my mind that your interest, and so making sure that we do bring that forward in meaningful ways.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, just to say that I'm looking forward to the draft climate action plan coming before the board next year, and glad to see that we've incorporated the work around waste reduction as per board motion, and so yeah, looking forward to seeing the work as it evolves. Thanks.
Super. Trustee Waters and Trustee Henson, thank you for your work on this. Very important work indeed. Pardon me. We'll go to district team leadership reports, superintendent's report. Superintendent Winton, over to you for your monthly report.
Thank you very much, Chair Painter. You will see on page 114 of the pack-up the report for the month of June. As we exit the school year, I would like to draw your attention to the gratitude section. So first, to the organizers of the Indigenous graduation ceremonies, it was a fantastic event, lots of family, lots of community members, and really full of pride in that room. So a lovely event, but I recognize it took a lot of planning and organization. So I do want to thank the members of the organization team. Also, we have many students across the district that are graduating and they're attending graduation ceremonies, which they have not been able to in the last 2 years. So that is exciting. And congratulations to all of the grads as well as the retirees. Again, we've had many retirees and some have stayed for the last 2 years so that they could retire under somewhat more typical circumstances. So many thanks to them. I also want to reach out and show appreciation and thanks to Audrey Smith with the Greater Victoria Crossing Guards Association, who has done a lot of work over the past several years to bring safe crossing for students and staff. And lastly, to all student, staff, parents, and caregivers for their support and diligence throughout the year. It was not an easy year, but I recognize that they put a lot of effort into it. Feels like a very long year, but also one that had many successes along with the challenges. And that was the successes anyways, in a large part due to the staff and the students and the parents, caregivers, and the board. So thank you very much. That is the end of my report.
Thanks, Deb. We have the motion that the Board of Education receive the superintendent's report as presented. The motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Trustee Duncan, or were you looking to move in second?
We're just moving it, yeah.
It's recommended. Yeah, we'll move it along quickly. Any discussion, comments, or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving the report, please signify. That's unanimous. Thank you. Trustee questions. Trustee Whitaker and then Trustee Duncan.
Thank you. So I'm just, I guess I got two areas, but one, I just wanted to touch on the committee reports that should be in this particular pack-up from all of our committees. And I guess through the chair to the superintendent, noting that they aren't there and they should all be there as of the board motion. So does that mean, I guess here's my point. I think it's really important for the new board coming in that those reports be made and done and available for that continuity for new trustees to get a feel of what has occurred the year before. So if the trustees aren't doing those committee reports, will it fall to the staff liaison to write those reports? Or what will happen to those?
Superintendent.
It may, if that's the trustee direction. I know of one, the George J. Naming Committee, and that did receive a report earlier this year. That was pretty much the conclusion of the meetings for this year for that committee. So I think that memo was included in a prior board pack-up. And I'm trying to think of the other committees we had this year that weren't reported today. We had climate action, we had school police liaison, advocacy. George J. was reported on previously.
At the audit committee, the facilities, French advisory, policy subcommittee. Yeah, there's definitely a few that are not there. I think for me, it's that there's a motion that says at the last board meeting of the year that these reports should be there. I think it's great that they're throughout the year, but when you know that they're supposed to be in January, why would you look in March, right? So I don't know what to do on that, but I did want to point out that they are missing.
Okay, any further comments or questions on the Secretary Treasurer's report, or trustee questions? My apologies. Tom, go ahead. No, I'm sorry, I had Trustee Duncan and then I'll go to Tom. My apologies. Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a couple of trustee questions. The first actually relates to the subject we're on. It's around ad hoc committees. I guess first I would echo Trustee Waters or Trustee Whitaker's points. But I also wanted to just sort of highlight something and ask through the chair of the superintendent whether work is being done to address this. And so if you go to our website at the moment and we go to Board of Education and the list of ad hoc committees, what we'll find is a list of those committees, the current ad hoc committees and the completed ad hoc committees, and a link to the terms of reference for each one. Now, our bylaw was amended a couple of years ago now, and one of the amendments we made to 9140 was to have our ad hoc committee, both the agendas, the minutes, and any reports relating to each ad hoc committee, as well as an up-to-date terms of reference available proactively on our website. So right now we've got a budget advisory committee, an Indigenous education ad hoc committee, an advocacy ad hoc committee, an audit committee, a district facilities plan ad hoc committee, an equity ad hoc committee, a French advisory committee, the school police liaison officer review committee, and the George J. Naming committee. Those are all the active committees. And so those are the committees where we want to have the website updated so that we're attending to our commitments in our bylaw. So I just wondered through the chair to the superintendent, what steps we're taking to make sure that happens.
Superintendent.
Yep. Thank you, Trustee Duncan. We are working through that with staff at the district office and trying to load the TORs as well as the agendas and minutes. So I think that is a work in progress that we're attending to right now.
Okay, thank you. Tom.
I was just going to say that not all the committees necessarily met in the previous year. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Trustee Whitaker on the same topic.
Yeah, and just like the advocacy committee did not meet over the year, that's what my report says. So I guess I'm just saying if the committees did not meet over the year, which can happen, then that's what should be in the report and coming forward, that they did not meet. Then when somebody's doing their research, they're not looking for minutes that don't exist because it's not there. The minute that just didn't happen. So
okay. Thank you. Any further comments or questions on the trustee questions portion of the superintendent's report? Jordan, and then Trustee Duncan once again. Jordan, go ahead.
Just note that in the bylaw, it's very clearly a trustee's responsibility. So I don't know that we would be expecting staff to be writing reports that are trustees' responsibilities unless the board wanted to make specific motions to that effect.
Thank you. We agree. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just had another question around, this is following up on a question I've asked earlier in the year. So we passed several motions in June 2021 as a board, and we directed staff to apply for Canada infrastructure loans for the purchase of our e-buses. And I suppose happily, what happened was that there ended up being some money in the budget, and staff recommended to the board that we use that money to purchase e-buses rather than apply for the low interest loans. And so my question is, we have not rescinded those motions directing staff to apply for the loans. And I'm wondering what the plan is to kind of close out those pending motions, if they'll come forward to be rescinded, or if I can just get clarification on how we've closed those out. Thanks.
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. This is on the to-do list. I've been advised that we first have to ask the minister to cancel our borrowing bylaw, and then the board would rescind. So it's on the list. It didn't make it to June, but over the summer, I'll be writing that letter to the minister.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing, Trustee Duncan.
I have one more, Chair. I know it's late, but from my perspective, these are important questions. I just have one more.
Go ahead.
Thanks a lot. So I wondered if we get some clarification on the increased seat capacity at Vic High. And I appreciate that, again, the question might not be able to be addressed now, but I believe it's been asked a couple of times, and I just want to kind of be clear. So my understanding was that the increased or the work at Vic High would result in a 200 seat increase. And I'm wondering whether that is still the case, or if we're looking at reduced student capacity, so not quite as much of an increase as we anticipated when the project was first moved forward.
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Yeah, I think this question was asked, as far as I can recall, for the first time at June Ops, and we said that we would bring an answer back. So I think we're prepping that for September Ops, if that's okay. I think we needed to reconcile some of the communication and to clarify that for you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go to Secretary Treasurer's report, monthly report. Secretary Treasurer Morris, over to you.
Thank you. My report is attached for information. I would like to highlight that we did hold our first Do You Want to Be a School Trustee session on June 16th. We had 16 prospective trustees attend. Thank you to senior staff for their contribution to the presentation. And yeah, and we look forward to our second session on August 27th, starting at 9 a.m.
Thank you. We have a motion to receive the Secretary Treasurer's report. Motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
Thanks, and thank you for the report. I just wondered, this art inventory that we've been doing, and thank you for the people going through all of it, because I know it's been a work in project for a while. Do we have any further plans beyond this inventory at this point with the art within our district?
Secretary Treasurer Morris.
The intention is to verify the inventory that we think we have, and then reconcile any pieces that aren't where they're supposed to be to account for their whereabouts, and then to evaluate or value the art and then insure it, so that we have an accurate inventory, an understanding of what the art is worth, and that it's insured correctly should fire or damage or anything else affected.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, I think that's great and fantastic. I'm just wondering, do we have a plan to curate this in some way that we could have, say, some viewings, or, you know, like this is the art we have and we haven't gotten that far? I just know we have some pretty amazing pieces.
Yes, I haven't thought that far ahead, but I'm happy to take that next step once this first phase is completed.
Excellent. Sounds like an opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of receiving the Secretary Treasurer's report, please signify. That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. We'll go now to the capital project building envelope motions. First is major capital projects. The Board of Education of School District 61 approve for submission to the Ministry of Education the 2023-2024 capital plan as it relates to major capital projects. The recommended motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor?
Do we have a, sorry.
Sorry, Kim, sorry.
Do we have a mover and seconder?
It's a recommended motion. Do we need one?
No, these ones didn't come from committee.
Oh, okay, right. Thank you. Okay, so can I get a mover? I'm clearly tired. Jordan, and seconded by Anne. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the course correction on that. Minor capital.
Pardon me, Chair, point of order or point of clarification. I didn't vote in favor.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to vote the way I wanted to. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try those opposed. Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Acknowledging you voted up in opposition, so the motion carries with Trustee Duncan opposed. Thank you. It's getting late. I'm getting tired, so the best course of action is to slow down. So I will do that. C, minor capital project. The motion reads that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve for submission to the Ministry of Education the 2023-24 capital plan as it relates to minor capital projects. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Tom. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? And that carries with Trustee Duncan opposed. D, building envelope program. Motion reads that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve for submission to the Ministry of Education the 2023-2024 capital plan as it relates to the building envelope program. Can I have a mover for this motion, please? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Jordan. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. And that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll go to the Spectrum Turf project. There is a recommended motion. This one does not need to be seconded or moved because it came from a previous committee, so it is on the floor.
I'm sorry, I don't think this came from a committee.
Does not come from, oh no, this was a staff recommendation. That's right. Okay. Can I waive full reading of the motion and get a mover and a seconder, trustees? Are we okay with that? Okay, can I have a mover, please? Moved by Anne, seconded by Jordan. Thank you. Any discussion on this motion? And thank you, trustees, for keeping me in line. I appreciate you. Elaine.
I'm assuming that when we're talking about negotiation in order to come up with a draft joint agreement, that will involve two-way conversation to answer all of the questions that I posed at operations. And I'm not going to go through the list again because I think I mentioned them all at ops, but I'm going through the chair to the secretary treasurer. I'm assuming that the back and forth of negotiations will address all of those areas of concern.
Secretary treasurer?
Yes, they will. I do have the list of questions that you mentioned, and I do think they will be brought out through the terms of the draft joint use agreement.
Okay, I mean, I have the list here, but I didn't think I had to repeat them again. But I'm assuming that it will be brought back to us, and if I find that they're not all in there, then I can bring them up at that time, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Trustee Duncan and then Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wondered through the chair to Trustee Leonard, I'm sorry if I missed your list, but I would really appreciate seeing it. And if I've missed it, if you wouldn't mind pointing me in the right direction. yeah, I'd like to see, I mean, yeah, I'd be interested to see what your questions are. And I hope that there'll be an opportunity to add some more. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a verbal list that I had, and just about making sure that collective agreements were looked at when we're looking at in-kind donations and that type of thing, and qualified contractors, warranties, how the fundraising will be complete. I asked how recent was the quote for the $2.2 million costing of it. I asked if there had been community consultation, and about rentals to the district and how that was going to work. Whether we were getting rentals now and whether it would eat into some of those costs. So I did communicate that verbally at the ops meeting, but those were my concerns. So I would look forward to those questions being answered in a prospective joint use agreement coming forward.
Okay, Trustee Duncan for a follow-up, go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly, thank you, Trustee Leonard, for reminding me about those verbal questions. I appreciate it. And I do remember them now. I just wanted to add one of the things that came across to me and that I want to just make sure that I voice when I have the opportunity to, is just, for me, long-term land use and long-term district need for access to the land is something that I hope that we also are kind of prioritizing during the negotiation phase. So in particular, what I mean is, taking the longer view. So 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, let's say we need to replace the school. Are we going to need that land in order to do that? So some sort of longer term thinking about what might be the educational needs for that land. I hope that we can have some discussions about how a joint use agreement can address those long-term needs and be very specific about them.
Okay. Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. My question was actually, thank you for Trustee Leonard for expanding yours, but was a kickoff on your first list of questions, which was in regards to consultation. So through the chair to the superintendent or secretary treasurer, what will consultation look like? Are we going to be doing some in regards to this, or how will that play into this joint use agreement?
Secretary Treasurer.
Sure. So the STAR committee did do some consultation with neighbors in October 2020, and we have some of the results of that. I think is there general support for the project, and I believe they asked about some lighting, but through the policy, we'll ensure that the principal has consulted. It's going to be almost 2 years this fall, so I should probably reach out to neighbors again to find out under our policy the support or concerns that neighbors may have.
Yeah, so I guess my question is does that need to happen before the joint use agreement, or does it happen after the joint use agreement?
Well, I think they can happen, in my opinion, they could happen concurrently. We know that they've canvassed once, almost 2 years ago. I think that the principal could go out for information again at the same time as we are discussing terms of the agreement before it comes back to the board.
Yeah, I agree that we could do it at the same time. I'm hopeful that we can do consultation that has our name on it. So it's our consultation, not somebody else's.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Whitaker. I will go back to Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, just a brief comment around the policy. So I'm assuming we're talking about policy 7122, community involvement in the process of building and site development. And while, neighbors are kind of one aspect of that, folks with children who attend the school are also, and with who attend the school and those without children, we're looking to consult with both both parties. And I agree with Trustee Whitaker that we definitely want to put our, our own process in place. It's our obligation, not the STAR committee, in my view, to ensure that we've consulted about the development or potential development of our land. And so, yeah, just want to echo that and just highlight that other piece of the policy.
Okay, I don't know if staff have a follow-up to that or.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I use the STAR committee because the principal is on the STAR committee. We know that the principal is responsible for consulting with their school community, including families and neighbors. So it'd be the principal leading that.
Hey, trustees, any further comments or questions on this? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on this motion, and I guess I should read it so that it's read into the record. I know trustees have consented to waive, but I should read it at least once. That the Board of Education of School District number 61 direct the superintendent to work with district staff and the Spectrum Turf stakeholder team, including the Spectrum Community School principal, to negotiate a draft joint use agreement between the board and the Vancouver Island Soccer League for the construction, use, maintenance, and capital replacement of an artificial turf field at Spectrum Community School, and further, that the agreement be presented for the board's consideration no later than September 27, 2022. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed, I don't see Trustee Waters, so that is, but I believe that was unanimous for trustees present, unless someone corrects me otherwise. Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. F, Victoria High School storm drain construction. Before we go to the recommended motion, do staff have anything we'd like to say before we move to motion and debate?
Superintendent Whitten, would you like me to start?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So we have at Vic High, we have a project regarding storm connection that is fairly timely or very timely in our seismic upgrade project. And so what we have here is a memo for you in terms of explaining some of the options that are available. So the first option would be that the, I'm sorry, my link isn't working. I will just get there, sorry. Yeah, so one of the options is to defer the storm placement to September after most of the growing season has been concluded at the farm. And the other option is to carry on with the storm drain immediately during the summer in order to complete the work before school starts and to not incur large prolongation costs for the delay of the project. And so we did meet with the owner of the farm the other day, and we did talk about some of the options. And one of the options could be for the board to cover off any lost revenue, which the owner stated was between about $17,000 and $21,000. We understand from an update today that in order to restore the garden after the storm placement may cost an additional $5,000. So the board may wish to consider reimbursing the owner of the farm up to $30,000 resulting from this new information. It's fairly important that the work be done in the summer, as again, we would be able to forego any prolongation costs. We would be able to forego delaying the opening of the school. And most importantly, when students come back to school in September, it would be a safe space. If we delay the project, students could be trying to access Ferry Tech in an excavation zone. We understand there are some very sensitive plants, and we appreciate Jesse Brown's cooperation and his willingness to come to the table to discuss alternate options. In addition, we have been working with the principal and the Indigenous Education Department to make plans to replace the Vic High Indigenous Garden when the project is finished, and to put the current Indigenous garden to sleep for the duration of the project. And we're hearing loud and clear through presentations tonight that there are lots of interested and willing partners in this particular part of the project, and we understand the importance of that, and we'll continue to work to make the Indigenous Education Garden unfold as plans progress. And so we're asking the board tonight if they want to consider moving ahead with the project in July, and to defray some of the lost revenue and some of the startup costs again once the garden comes back to Vic High after construction.
Thank you. And Secretary Treasurer, I wonder, so the board has your recommended, staff's recommended motions, the first on the commencement of the project, and the second on the recoup of costs. And then on the agenda as well, there is a motion around entering into, just get down there, my apologies, negotiating a license to occupy between the board and the Street City Farm, and the license to occupy to be brought to the board for final approval. So both to be considered for open board. Do you need us to go through one of these first? What process would you like us to follow?
The agenda that I'm looking at has one recommendation on the open agenda, and that is to advance the project to July 2022 and to compensate Mason Street City Farm for the equivalent of lost revenue and now perhaps start up again. You may have been referring to a different version or a previous version of the agenda that was corrected later Friday evening.
It is entirely possible that I have the different agenda open.
So we have one recommendation, that the Board of Education of School District 61 advance the Vic High Storm Connection Project to commence July 2022, and further that the superintendent negotiate with Mason Street City Farm to compensate Mason Street City Farm the equivalent of its lost revenue for the period of disruption to the farm up to a maximum of $25,000.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. I appreciate that. I had notes on two different agenda packages.
Yes.
And I had the wrong one. So yes, you're right. The recommended motion in front of us, trustees, is as the Secretary Treasurer has read to us, advancing the storm connection project, and the second one on the recouping of costs. So do I have a mover first for the motion? Moved by Tom and seconded by Elaine. Discussion on the recommended motion. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wonder if we might move into a committee of the whole so we can have a little bit more free-flowing dialogue on this. I think there's some nuance here and some layers that where we would benefit from having a little more free-flowing dialogue rather than, 2 minutes to speak to this. This is an emerging issue, and yeah.
Trustees, can we move into committee of the whole? Is there any objection? Seeing none, okay, then we'll move into committee of the whole. Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleagues. I just wanted to start with a couple of clarifying questions just to kind of maybe ground us, or me anyways, in the conversation. First, I wanted to just clarify that we're not speaking about all of the Vic High Learning Garden or Learning Farm. We're speaking about, I believe it's up to 60% of the garden that would be affected by the current planned storm drain installation. Is that right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Thanks. And so just if I may, Chair, follow up.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll free flow and I won't interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that clarification. The other thing I wanted to just address that it's come up, and I'd like to, if I may, get some guidance and context from staff, is around an option that wasn't in the memo, but that we've heard about, and that was around the possibility of rerouting the storm drain so that it essentially bypasses the garden. It doesn't interfere with the garden. And I believe, if I'm correct, that option may have been costed somewhere around 100,000. So I wondered if we can get some clarification and just some context about, if I'm correct about that was an option, that is the estimate, why it is not being recommended tonight.
And I might call on Marnie Vistus and Harwood to talk about that other option.
Yeah, we did cost that option, and you're correct, it was about $100,000. It is actually going to cause more damage to the farm. So that's the one reason why it's not in the memo. The trench is going to have to be a lot deeper because of the size of the pipes. So it's going to be far more than 60% of the farm that will actually be damaged. So it's not viable, I guess you could say.
Go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. So by rerouting, we don't mean rerouting around the farm. I guess I'm just confused on why we would look at an option that would do more damage. My understanding was that rerouting meant to avoid the farm so as not to do damage. I wonder if I'm missing something or.
No, you're not. No, we looked at it on a map. It looked great. We'd have to put another manhole in it. And when we started looking at the size of the pipe, it just, the amount of digging that would have to happen would actually cause more damage to the farm. So we gave up on that portion of it, I guess you could say. We stopped costing it completely because we knew it was going to do more damage to the farm than the current route through it.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'll let my colleagues ask a few more questions. I feel like I'm taking up too much time, so I'll come back, but thanks, Chair.
We're in committee of the whole, that's fine. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just trying to get a visual. If somebody can help me, I walk by this farm every day, and I spent a lot of time this morning walking all the way around and just getting a really good lay of the land. Can somebody tell me exactly, like, I mean, I understand there's this 60%, but approximately where is this digging happening? Like, I don't know if you can help me with that. Like, I understand where the native garden is. So where are we digging in this?
Again, I'd call on facility staff to answer if they can.
How do I explain this? So essentially, if you look at the corner of the parking lot nearest Ferry Tech, there'll be a manhole there, and you're going to dig a straight line that's going to go to another manhole that is at the far end of the rectangular plot in the farm.
So it's going to go diagonal across the rectangle or just down the sidewalk?
No, not down the sidewalk, just diagonal to the end of the farm.
Okay, so that makes more sense. That's what I was trying to understand, how these manholes were lining up. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any trustees, any further discussion? Trustee Duncan, please continue.
Yeah, thanks. And so I also wanted to get some clarity around the need for the drain, and kind of whether this drain was always part of the plan and always required as part of that plan, or if it's linked to the childcare unit that's being built, and it's a requirement as a result of the childcare unit.
Again, I'd call on facilities if they know the answer tonight.
Yeah, it has always been part of the plan for the seismic upgrade. It's not part of the plan for the childcare. However, saying that we might have to tie into it as part of the childcare, we're just not to that point in the drawings where we know that information yet.
Thank you.
Any further discussion and debate? Trustee Whitaker?
So I would seek clarity on, I heard Eden very clearly and others about the need to move the native garden at the right time of year. I know in my own garden that you definitely not wanting to do that in the middle of the summer. So what plans are there then for that removal? I have looked at what's there and the big bush that Eden was talking about. And yeah, so I guess, is that area salvageable through this? Or if you can fill me in on what your plan is with that, I would just be very grateful.
So I'm not aware of the actual plan myself, and I don't know if facilities is either, but we know that the principal working with the Indigenous Education Department is able or is willing or is supportive of moving plants from Vic High to, I believe, South Park, and to removing the camas bulbs temporarily and then replacing them at Vic High. And then when the project is finished, to reinstate an Indigenous garden. And I don't know, Marnie, if you have any other details on that plan, but that's the information that I have.
Yeah, and there's a little bit more to it. There's some trees that will be moved over to an elementary school, and I believe the medicine will be moved into the same elementary school, and that's in consultation with the Indigenous department. And the plan is to have, it's been in a lot of consultation with our horticultural experts on our staff, and the plan is to start moving next week.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And another issue or point that was raised that I want us to discuss is the issue around the need for a more broad consultation than simply the school principal and Indigenous Education Department. You know, clearly there's a long history here with the participation of many members of both the Fernwood community, many Indigenous elders who have been involved in the project. And so I'm wondering what the plan is. I mean, given the tight timeline here, to ensure that folks are included in the discussion, and in particular at this stage, the discussion around how to safely and respectfully address the potential move of, or the proposed move of the Indigenous plant garden.
So I think we know there are lots of interested partners in the community. We can certainly try to update them as best we can. We know that it may be a matter of opinion or subjectivity that the principal and the Indigenous Education Department are not enough consultation. However, that is the consultation protocol that we've been working through when we look at Indigenous learnings and issues in our district. And so through the Indigenous Education Department, we certainly have been working. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be reaching out to other partners, which we can do if that type of discussion fits within the important timelines that we have in front of us for the project.
Trustee Duncan.
And so I understand that there's tight timelines here. I guess I'm sharing a little bit in the some frustration about, planning early enough that we can more fully consult. I know we're reaching out and speaking to Jesse about how relocating plants or preserving soil and then replacing soil how that could be done. But it strikes me that with such a short timeline, to really meaningfully involve, our partners in the learning farm, it's going to take, more meetings. So I guess if at the end of the day, the only option is to reimburse, then, I would like to see some kind of proactive commitment to closely consult with our partners. So, in addition to the principal and Indigenous Education Department, closely working with Jesse and the other rights holders involved in formulating the plan. So I know that maybe we're not in a position at this point to speak to the precise details of the plan because it sounds like it's a work in progress, but yeah, having a further commitment to closely involving folks in the development of the plan, I think would be a big step in the right direction.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? If none, as we are in committee of the whole, we need to rise and report. So can I have a motion to rise and report, please? Moved by Elaine. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Jordan. All those in favor of rising and reporting, please signify. I believe that's unanimous. Yes, it is. Okay, so now we're back to the main motion. Let me go to the right agenda. And so the main motion as in front of us, that the Board of Education of School District 61 advance the Vic High Storm Connection project to commence July 2022. And further, that the superintendent negotiate with Mason Street City Farm to compensate Mason Street City Farm the equivalent of its lost revenue for the period of disruption to the farm up to a maximum of $25,000. Secretary Treasurer Morris, have we moved and seconded this? I think we have, but can you please confirm?
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, I'd just like to move an amendment. So I'm looking to amend to a maximum of 25,000 to a maximum of, I believe that the most up-to-date quote was 30,000. The chair to secretary treasurer, is that correct?
30,197.
Wonderful. So that is my amendment.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Any discussion on changing the maximum from 25,000 to 30,197? Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, I by no means think that this is the best or most ideal option, but I think at the very least, if the board is going to move in this direction, then we should be properly compensating our partner of many years for their losses. I'm minded that we've got a partner who has through their own efforts helped us to build a program that both the community at the school-based level as well as the wider Fernwood and Victoria community support a great deal. And so I think at the very least we could ensure that we're ensuring that these costs are covered. And my hope is that it's somewhat of seen as somewhat of an olive branch, but certainly is by no means an ideal situation or one that I think we ideally should be in. But so yes, I hope my colleagues will support at the very least increasing the amount.
Yes, Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I will also support this. In fact, I would have gone a little bit higher than the 30,000. I'm reflecting on, I think that there's some losses that we can't necessarily put a dollar figure on. I think that having this happen to this farmer where he already has clients and now he's going to have to fill those boxes with somebody else's produce is leaving him at risk to possible loss of those customers, loss of the good faith and goodwill. I'm also really cognizant of Eden's comments about, there's a lot of emotional attachment to this earth and to having the time and effort that has been spent on this land. I think that there's a point there that needs to be considered and thought about. I also, I think it's really important that we do what we need to maintain this relationship. And as Jesse Brown did say that, this is a model that is being looked at across the province. And I too would like to see this expanded across the district. I think part of that expansion needs to go towards, you know, what are we doing in our schools over the summer? What opportunities are there? I mean, the reason that we don't do more of this learning is simply based on our schedule. It is because our students are there for planting and they're there for harvest. They're not in school during July and August. And you know, when I look around at all the changes that are going on and demands on buildings and spaces, I sure wonder what it would look like if we came up with summer programming that maybe provided some of our high school students that were short credits for graduation, that they could do a summer course on this and maybe pick up some of those electives that they need. Especially when I do know, I mean, Eden is a shining example. What an amazing young girl. But if you had met her before she did this work, you would have had a different thought. And that is because she's found her spark. She's found her place. She's found what connects her, and has connected and expanded and grown with so many other people. When our students find their spark, it is just electric and it just expands so far. And I would love to see more of that. I think it's important that we understand the diversity of our students and that this type of learning and activity is so critical to so many of our students who are struggling to sit in the classroom, who are struggling with making connections with their social peers, and they need that connection to the land. So I think it's really important that we do increase this, and we keep that relationship, and we encourage and let our students and our teachers know that we're committed to this type of programming.
Thank you. Jordan.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks to Jesse and Eden and everybody else who came forward to speak of the excellent work that's happening at Mason Street Farms. I have some of their seedlings on my deck. I know what wonderful work they're doing. This is a once in a century seismic project, and you know, I think it's fairly well known that the district is not sitting on a pile of money at this time, and I'm happy to support this motion, recognizing that it really is the best we can reasonably do given the potential costs of delaying the project. Financial costs, you know, would be huge, but also wanting to get those students back into a revitalized, safe Vic High as soon as possible so that they can get back to the farm and be a part of rebuilding it. So obviously it's not what anybody wants, but this scale of project requires some flexibility and creative thinking in order to make sure that we do it the best possible way, maintain, you know, these excellent programs.
Thanks, Jordan. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? And those opposed? Abstentions? So the motion carries with Trustee Tom Ferris opposed and Trustee Elaine Leonard abstaining. So the amendment carries, pardon me. So we're now to the amended motion. Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, I just have a further amendment that I want to put forward. So so the first part of the motion reads that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, advance the Vic High Storm Drain Connection Project to commence July 2022, and further that the superintendent negotiate and so on. I want to add, after to commence July 2022, I want to add in close consultation with Mason Street City Farms regarding the responsible relocation of plants and soil.
Okay, so the amendment is to add after July 2022, advance in close consultation with Mason Street Farm And please, the rest of that, Nicole, just so that we've got it here.
With Mason Street City Farms about the responsible relocation of plants and soil. And Chair, if you'll just indulge me a little bit here, I want to make sure that this amendment.
Sorry. I just need to make sure it's seconded before, or were you motivating, or were you trying to clarify wording?
I wanted to clarify wording, if I may, but I appreciate you want to get a seconder maybe first, but I was trying to clarify wording.
Sure, let's get a seconder and then totally clarify wording, and if we need to adjust. So it's seconded, Trustee Whitaker seconded, thank you. And then we can flex this to wording, that's fine.
That sounds great, thanks. So I guess what I hope that my colleagues understand the intention here, and the intention is to ensure that we're building something into this motion whereby, you know, we're bringing the parties together so that, you know, if this has to happen and there's no other option at this stage, that we're building something into the motion to bring the parties together to make sure that it's done in the best way possible. And so I wonder if, you know, the wording, which is responsible relocation of plants and soil, is sufficient. And, you know, Chair, if you'll indulge me, I mean, I would really appreciate the view of our stakeholder who from Mason Street City Farms, who happens to still be here. I wonder if it would be possible to briefly hear from Jesse about that wording, and, you know, whether I've appreciated as a layperson what would be required in a motion to ensure that the parties come together about the right pieces.
So to do that, we would need a motion to, to do it formally, we would need a motion to suspend the rules. But I'm also willing to, given that it's 10:41, allow some flexibility on this. I'm wondering if Jesse is still with us and if he can comment on that. And trustees, are we okay with adding some flexibility here tonight? I'm not seeing any objections to allow Jesse to just speak really briefly, like a minute at max, please, because really this is supposed to be time for trustees to debate, but I'm giving you a little bit of flexibility here, so please make it brief.
Thank you. Yeah, I am still here. I appreciate, Chair, the opportunity to speak. The movement of the Indigenous garden, I would love to be involved in just the consultation with IED about that. I think it's important. Part of it is just for the sake of trust and to know what it is that they want to do. It is true that myself, Sarah Rood, and Saanich Native Plants have actually been stewarding that garden, that particular Indigenous space, for the last 7 years. The apple trees that are needing to be moved, it's a really bad time, but obviously they need to be moved. The soil, the topsoil is one of my primary concerns on the annual area, and there's going to need to be some consultation between me and the construction company as to how they will scrape that soil off the base layer of soil before they start digging, and how they will store that. That's also 7 years of intense care and investment. We need to keep that soil in order to be able to rebuild the farm. So yeah, ensuring that I have a way would be important.
Thanks, Jesse. I appreciate that, and thank you for making it as brief as possible given the circumstances. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, sounds like that. Sorry, Chair, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, are you happy with the wording as it currently is? And do you want to go into debate now? I do see staff have their hands up, but I just want to make sure you finished your opening.
Yeah, no, I think I just wanted to ensure that the wording plants and soil was sufficient to ensure that the intention behind suggesting the further amendment. And I think hearing from Jesse helps to confirm in my mind that is sufficient wording.
Okay, I see staff have their hands up, so I'm going to go to Secretary Treasurer Morris.
So if I may, can I clarify what this amendment is referring to? Yes. In close consultation, understanding what we're speaking about in this amendment, what land, what garden.
Yes, I think I agree. I think it's not necessarily clear what we're talking about. So Trustee Duncan, if you could please clarify the in close consultation with Mason Street City Farm about the responsible relocation of plants and soil. Please let us know what specifically you're referencing.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I'm referencing the soil from the part of the site that is going to be disrupted as a result of the drain installation and the plants on that site, including the Indigenous plant garden. So I'm talking about all of the land with soil and plants that is going to be disrupted as a result of this storm drain installation, because I understand that there's a portion of the site that in fact won't be impacted.
Okay, Secretary Treasurer Morris.
I know you're in debate, so I apologize for, but I don't believe staff was called on before the amendments were made. My main concern would be including a valuable partner that may have more or less influence than the advice we've already received through our Indigenous Education Department. And so I'm just cautious of this. I don't know how to exactly word it, but I caution the board in terms of our protocols in terms of our Indigenous Education Department.
Okay, I'm going to go to Elaine, and then sorry, Trustee Duncan. I'm going to just carry forward. I'm going to go to Elaine and then Trustee Whitaker. Sorry.
Kind of clarification. Can you just reread the motion? I just would like to rehear that amendment.
Yeah. So the amendment would. I'll read the first part of which is intact. That the Board of Education of School District Number 61 Greater Victoria advance the Vic High Storm Connection Project to commence July 2022. The amendment would add, after that, in close consultation with Mason Street City Farm about the responsible relocation of plants and soil. So that is the recommended amendment.
Thank you.
And Elaine, I'll go to you.
So I'm not going to support the amendment. I think our staff has heard very clearly the issues. I think in talking about a monetary payment to the farm, we value what's there. We're trying to do the best we can with the situation before us. So I think the people on site and the Indigenous garden and the people in our departments who have been there daily with the contractors probably know the issues already. And I think we have to allow them to move forward in a way that allows them to get on with the job without having other people running around. And I'm not trying to belittle what they're trying to do, but having other people on the site that aren't the contractors. So I'm not going to support the motion. I think all of our facilities staff, of our Secretary Treasurer, Superintendent, and our Indigenous Department all know the value of what we want to keep and how we want to keep it and how the farm is going to be hopefully revitalized for next year, which is hence why we're even discussing a monetary contribution to make sure the farm does succeed. So I'm not going to support the motion, the amendment this time.
Thanks, Elaine. I'll go to Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. I am going to support this and support this amendment because as much as we've got contractors, we've got staff, we've got IED, do you know what? As we've heard, the emotional attachment to these plants and frankly, the knowledge and the skills that know about these plants and how to properly move them, what would make the move the best for these plants. I think that is critical skills and knowledge that we should be using. And I think that probably the contractor and the IED, if we actually are saying, yeah, we really want to move this in a way where these plants have a successful transplant, then I think we'd be foolish not to be listening to the farmer as to how that would best be done. I don't think adding that, there's consultation with the farmer precludes any that the contractor still gets to do the work. It's about saying, you know what, look, here's a person who is invested and actually has the knowledge to support a good move and in the best way that we possibly can. So why wouldn't we consult with them? Why wouldn't we try and maintain that partnership and that relationship that we're talking about to ensure that, you know, if we have the opportunity to, instead of scraping, to push in our dig, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we make sure that we're not going down too far or that we get the right level? Why wouldn't we ask those people that know to help support us with that, rather than we just let the tractor and the bulldozer come in and do whatever they want without any any knowledge on, you know what, that's not how to do it. And I think that we've seen that type of work done in many different areas, and we've heard the public outcry. I believe if we look back, we've already had the outcry when we took down the victory or memorial trees. I can't remember if they were the victory trees or the memorial trees on Vic Highlands, where we didn't talk, we didn't consult, and we just took them down. So I think it's really important that we understand that community and that area, that they want to know that we are doing everything we can, if we are going to do this, to safeguard and care for those plants. So, and that soil, because as well, that has taken years to develop that soil. So I will be supporting this motion or amendment.
I'm going to put myself on the list. So I have had an opportunity, as I think we all have since this emerged, to talk with folks in the community, specifically folks who have worked in the urban garden, urban farming community, and my understanding from them, and they've really been educating me a lot on this. And so I really want to lift my hands to them and thank them for the work that they've done to contact me personally and have conversations and help me understand how special and unique this place is. You know, the connection, the real tangible connections, not just physically, emotionally and spiritually to this place, is so important, and the value is so high that I think it's really important that we understand as we're coming through, like, yeah, this is a construction project, but it's also more than that in this particular special place. And I really appreciate that. I think we've done an exceptional job as a board. We haven't passed the motion yet, but we've approved increasing the amount to provide to Mason Street City Farm and lost revenue. And I think that was the right call. Nobody appreciates that we got to this situation, I think. For me, it's really important that I think staff hear and have heard the value of, you know, this work in the community in this really special place. I mean, I think that's what comes up in these conversations. And I value the people who have come to speak with us tonight, from Sarah to Eden to Jesse, and really, and beyond that, folks in the community who have brought forward a lot of information who weren't presenting. For me, I won't be supporting this motion because I believe that what we've brought together with the compensation package and with the discussions, the presentations we've had, and I believe what we've heard from community, staff have the professional wherewithal and capacity to move forward, manage and mitigate these challenges and work with this. We are not, trustees are not the ones on the ground doing the work. We're not the ones communicating and working with contractors, construction folks, all that who are doing the work. There's so much more built into this than we can, I think, reasonably be expected to understand beyond a debate on Monday night around this. And it's not to belittle the challenges of this piece, because it's super challenging. But I expect and I trust staff to have heard and to know how important mitigating these challenges are to the best of their capacity. And I'm sure that they are going to do that. They have my full, complete faith and trust to do this work. So I won't be supporting this because I really do believe that staff can manage this, and the motion is, as it's originally stated, I think does the work. Any further comments or questions? If not, I'll let Trustee Duncan close.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So yeah, I just, I want to clarify, I guess, first of all, that, I brought the amendment forward because what I've learned since raising the motion through ops on Monday, a week ago, is that there's a significant amount of expertise that both Mason Street City Farms brings. Well, in particular, with all due respect, a project manager or a construction manager may not appreciate about soil health, about relocating sensitive plants. And so, that expertise that we have in our partner is, I think it would be a real mistake for us not to build into this motion something that brings the parties together and takes advantage of that expertise. We do want to do this in a good way. And if this is the last option on the table and there's no other option, then at least let's make sure we do it in a good way. And I by no means put this forward as an indictment of staff. Not at all. This is about wanting to make sure that our partners come together. We utilize the expertise that we have in a partner who knows this land in and out and knows what the requirements are. And I think the other thing that really motivated me in bringing the amendment forward is that I would like to see us take some meaningful steps to do everything we can as a board to ensure that this project continues in the future. We've all heard how unique and how special this is, how folks want to replicate it in other districts and in other schools. And I think one of the key steps to ensuring that that happens moving forward is making sure that we include folks in the steps that are going to be taken to move the soil and move the plants in a responsible, respectful way. So I hope my colleagues, see the wisdom in that. And, and I would just repeat that this is a special place. And I think everything we can do to treat it as such, we should. Because remember that, at the end of the day, it's the students who are benefiting a great deal from this sort of immersive outdoor educational opportunity.
Thank you, and that closes debate. I will call a question on the amendment to add that new piece about consultation with Mason Street City Farm. On the amendment, all those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? And the motion carries. So the with Trustee Ferris, Leonard, and Painter opposed, and the balance in favor. So the motion is amended. Now we're back to the main motion which has the new amended piece added to it. So I will call the question on the main motion. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? Abstentions? And that motion carries with Trustee Leonard abstaining. We'll go to question period. I have a question. Oh, sorry, Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, just a point of clarification. Is question period before new business or after? Sorry, let me just go to my agenda. I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to address the new business that's on the agenda.
It's before new business, but we have bumped.
Hey, sorry, thank you.
We bumped the trustee role to the end, so I will get there. Thank you. Thank you for checking. I appreciate that. It's late. And
thank you.
Okay, so I have a question here, and there's a bit of a preamble, so I'm going to just jump to the actual question. Why have the basic, tangible, frequently enjoyed, and costly to replace benefits for present and future Vic High classes, unlimited seasonal produce for class use, and value of facilitated learning farm seasons been left out of the accounting process for this report and recommended decision on this topic? So I guess the question is maybe why the relocation of the farm was not included in accounting for the project, the Big High project. I guess that's what the question's asking. I'm not sure if we can answer that tonight. Secretary Treasurer, are we able to answer that tonight? I'm not sure if we can.
For me, I think the questioner is trying to place a value on the things that aren't monetary. So it's easy to say we are going to pay for lost revenue or pay to help relocate. I think what the questioner is asking is what is the cost of those intangibles? And that is very difficult to value. I think the fact that the board is supporting the movement to and from and back to the site. I think the fact that it's a temporary disruption in an $80 million capital seismic upgrade that will benefit thousands of students to come makes it a little bit, I think we have to value that as well. So, I mean, we could talk about intangibles for a long time and try to value them. I think this is a short disruption. And something that we fully intend to bring back to the site. And so we're in the best situation that we can under the circumstances we have right now.
Thank you.
Chair, may I extend the meeting for 15 minutes, please?
Yes, sorry. Thank you for calling that. It is 11 o'clock and that means we need to extend. Trustees, do I have consensus? We don't need to vote. I do not see an objection. That is, Trustee Waters?
No, I object. You need a motion. I know both Angie and I are quite sick and we've done our very best, but
sure, I'll call. So
not to speak for Angie, but I know she's sick too.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm trying to move this along as quick as possible. Can I have a motion then to extend for 15? Moved by Trustee Duncan and seconded by Trustee Whitaker. All those in favor of extending 15 minutes? Those opposed to extending for 15 minutes? And the motion is defeated with Trustee Duncan and Trustee Whitaker opposed, and the balance in favor.
Stop. No, I was not opposed to that.
Sorry, Trustee Whitaker and Trustee Duncan in favor of extending and the balance opposed to extending. My apologies. Okay, so question period is passed. Public disclosure of in-camera items. We have a record of in-camera Board of Education meeting from May 30th, 2022, and record of special in-camera Board of Education meetings June 13th, 2022. I don't think I need to do anything with them. So those are there. We have new business and notice of motions. We have a notice of motion from Trustee Duncan on the Big High storm drain installation. Trustee Duncan, I imagine you want to withdraw that.
Yeah, the board's already voted, so it makes the motion and the memo mute at this point.
Okay, so that is withdrawn.
Point of clarification, since we are not extending the meeting, I would put forward a motion to adjourn.
Not yet. I will not accept that. We have one item, which is the role of trustee, which was bumped to the end of the meeting. Can I have a motion to refer that to September ops?
Excuse me, it would be September board meeting. It's already been through ops.
Yeah. Okay, since you're doing this, I also had a notice of motion.
I am not on you yet. Thank you. Moved by Elaine, seconded by Jordan. So the motion on the floor is to refer the role of the trustee policy to September board meeting. All of those in favor, please signify.
I don't care.
And that carries. Glad you don't care, Trustee Whitaker. We can hear you if you're not on mute. I think everyone should care about the work we're doing at the board, and I would hope that we would all bring our best, even when it's late. Trustee Whitaker, do you have a notice of motion?
Yeah, which I did tell you about. I will bring forward a notice of motion just because you're blowing through this here. I will bring forward a notice of motion to create a vista representative.
Trustee Whitaker, I have the floor now. I'm not blowing through anything. The board did not agree to extend, and so I am doing my.
We're 5 minutes after the deadline. That's my confusion.
Yep, go ahead. Your notice of motion.
No, I just told you. My thought is we're 5 minutes after the end of the scheduled agenda. This is why I called for either to extend the meeting or to end the meeting.
Trustee Whitaker, your notice of motion, please.
I will bring forward a motion to create a Vista, a board representative to Vista.
All right, thank you. Although, can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Trustee Waters, seconded by Trustee Leonard. All those in favor? And any opposed? Not opposed, that carries.